Just like do that. The Where's Bunny?
Where's Bunny?
Which
camera is the bunny in?
Camera?
So we'll just go live, a little unprepared, and I'll let you continue to make noises and conversation while I wait for the chapstick. Thank you for the chapstick. It's sometimes helpful.
I was just singing a little ditty about whether or not you could hear me in my microphone.
Singing to the rabbit about that. So are the rabbit keepers just going to hang while we chat? No, okay.
We have an hour with Sweet Rabbit.
We have an hour with Sweet Rabbit. So farewell, rabbit keepers. We are live here at Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway. The water seals it, the food feeds it. This is Christianity. If you thought about joining us, maybe you have joined us and you're still kind of sleepwalking. Have you woken up yet? Do you want to wake up? Today a few questions out of left field, but all kind of tied to discernment, wisdom, being able to see where you really are. Anyone, if you're hearing a little noise in the background, at the moment,
it's my stomach. I'm really hungry this morning.
Aurelius is chewing on an antler over there, and so he should stop in a moment. If he doesn't, I will.
Sick Sweet Rabbit on him.
Yeah, I will go grab him, but I hope that doesn't make it too difficult for y'all hearing wise. Maybe you don't hear it as much as I do. The mics do pick up, different than what I hear here in studio. So we got Bible questions, your questions, Bible answers, some of our nonsense coming your way on Stop the White Noise. I got two thoughts I kind of want to share with you. Our questions are pretty big though. They're gonna go for a while today. And I also always want to know, what have you been thinking about that we should share? So you talk. I take.
What have I been thinking about that I want to share? Well, last night while I was grilling supper, I was listening to episode 140 of Brief History of Power. I don't know if that's the newest episode. I kind of feel like it is. It seemed pretty relevant to what...
I'm listening.
It seemed pretty relevant to what you, Jonathan, had been talking to me about with regards to what you were excited about. Not excited, like happy excited, but just interested in and talking about with Dr. Kuntz. And
so this is the aliens episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the aliens.
We got another question about the aliens episode coming our way. It has questionnaire, but let's set it up with yours though.
Well, my question was more, I appreciated the way you guys spoke about whether or not we live in a Christian nation or a pagan nation, and how to discern the difference. I found that to be fascinating and disconcerting as well. Because, well, it's more comfortable to live in a Christian nation.
It would be for Christians, for sure. There's just no way around that. It's just true. And by the way, you all should be Christians. You don't have to stop loving your own heritage to be a Christian. Did you know that? But you do have to believe in the one King who's risen from the dead, because he is. Right, and that's the conquering reality of the reign of God in Jesus Christ. So that's why everyone should be a Christian. It's not like the best philosophy or something like that. The best philosophy is pretty straight up, love other people. I think even the Buddhists figured that out, right? But it isn't about the best philosophy. It's about the best philosophy is what it is, because that's what God is. That's who God is. God is three who are one, who are this, and one of them is now one of us who reigns forever, right? So you should be a Christian. Everyone should be a Christian. A Christian nation run by Christians who are Christians would be a great place. There would still be sin. There would still be trial. There are always attacks within the church. So it's not as though there would not be all sorts of issues. But I think a nation in which little kids can play outside in the village without being done wicked things to, I think that such a thing is possible amongst Christians and with, say, good government, if you can find such a thing. So yeah.
And So you guys were talking about the difference. And then that just flowed into, as I was thinking and meditating on what your discussion contained and the different things you said. I went to my readings for the day, and then Proverbs 28. I was off by a day. Yesterday was not the 28th, right? Today's the 29th. No, today's the 29th. So I went to Proverbs 29
Gotcha.
yesterday. Okay, now we're all caught up. And I was reading in 29:2. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice.
Amen. Yeah.
And so that totally follows with what you were just saying.
Yeah.
But when a wicked man rules, the people groan.
They groan. Yeah.
But I walked away from, and then, how to organize my thoughts. So we're talking about the wicked being in charge. And then I went this morning to Isaiah, and I was like, I just kind of feel like Isaiah this morning. So I was reading in the sections of Isaiah that the Horner method has led me to, or the Hebron reading schedule, however you want to look at that. And I started at Isaiah 36, where Sennacherib boasts against Jesus Christ. And then Hezekiah's response. And the beauty of how that ties with us living in a pagan nation. We have these pagans telling us that we're stupid for following Christ and the promises in God's word that he lays out for us, and to just turn away from him and follow what we can see. And if you want to see how faithful God is through Scripture, we can look at Isaiah chapter 36 through 40, and we can see how he triumphs.
Yeah.
And the answer that it says, so Hezekiah then has this prayer where he's sick, and he's asking for his life to be extended. Right. And at the end, it talks about how he was basically at a great spot in his life. And then
you're going to die at the pinnacle.
Christ is like, okay, it's time. Yep. You're done. And he's like, and he's talking about how sad that seems to him, yet also depending on Jesus' promise to just lead him through. Essentially, he cries out, "This is what I want, but I know that you have an ultimate plan."
It's a good prayer.
It
really
beautiful.
is. Yeah.
And then, and then at the end, he, let me see if I can find the place that I thought was just tying it all together here. Indeed, it was for my own peace. This is Isaiah chapter 38, verse 17. Indeed, it was for my own peace that I had great bitterness, but you have lovingly delivered my soul from the pit of corruption. For you have cast all my sins behind your back. For Sheol cannot thank you, death cannot praise you. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for your truth. The living man, he shall praise you, as I do this day. The Father shall make known your truth to the children. And then he goes on to say in verse 20, Jesus Christ was ready to save me. Therefore we will sing my songs with stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of Jesus Christ. And
they called him Restorer of the Song of Israel. It's one of his titles.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's a beautiful testimony to how we can not fall into the pit of despair. Something that struck me that Dr. Kuntz was talking about with regards to living in a pagan nation is having love for the pagans. And I was curious.
I think he was talking about having love for the Christians. Like he was starting a little bit. Some of what he was talking about was in-house. It was like,
Okay.
so, hey guys who want to lead guys in this world of collapse, like, do you even love the guys you're trying to lead? Or is it
Okay.
just about being right and showing how smart you are? And he kind of was taking it to the inside crowd a touch.
Okay.
I really think so. And it's good. It's necessary. We actually, we got to think that through. And I think I brought up at that point with him a little bit about my experience in the ministerium of the Missouri Synod, that we are cynical.
Mm-hmm.
We are not getting together and loving each other, really, or building each other up to love those who are harming us. Because there is an edge where, for a lot of Missouri Synod pastors in various places and ways, I mean, their lives are just really hard. Really, really hard. So they get together and they complain about it, which is pretty human, pretty American, right? But it doesn't build up, right? It does the opposite of that. So
Yeah, it's psychologically,
Yeah.
like if we're gonna take ourselves out of, well, go more into the secular realm with it. Anytime that you complain, you actually aren't. The venting mind does not find rest.
no,
It only secures that opinion deeper into how you feel.
as victim, it's victimization talk. It's victimization mindset. It's
Yeah.
fatalism. It's also, I'm going to suggest, almost everything's Gnosticism. Just get ready for it. Everything's Gnosticism. It's all Gnosticism.
And it's such a hard place to get out of. Like, not. How do I try to find that peace, that rest, when I am disturbed by something someone has done? Because the common response is then to speak about it.
Yes,
try to
you're
get
talking
it
about the
out that
psychological.
way.
It's a grieve, right?
Yeah.
It's really, how do I have integrity between the hemispheres of my mind? How do I bring my emotions and my thoughts into harmony as a human being? And there's some point at which that requires expression.
Yeah.
Okay, so expression, we can do that different ways, but what you are, heart and soul, must come out. And so if what you are, heart and soul, is wounded, that must be expressed. That doesn't mean venting, though. Venting means you got wounds you ain't dealing with, like steam pressures building up and about to blow. That's when you vent stuff, right? You're in emergency mode when you're venting. It's not going to help. Especially if the venting is not solving the cause of the problem, the spiritual cause of the problem, right?
So
the venter says that other person's the problem, and that other person's the problem, that other person's the problem, right? That's the venting, right? Like letting the steam off here, and then they go back and they've not realized, oh, I'm the problem. Because all you, me, all of us, right, sinners, I'm my problem, right? That if I'm anyone's problem, I'm my problem. I'm God's problem, but really I'm God's problem because I chose to be my problem. I rebelled against him and became my problem. And now God, rather than deciding to solve the problem with dismissal, has redeemed the problem, has solutioned the problem through this miracle of mercy and grace. So to own that, a venter's not owning anything of the problem. They're in full victimization mode, in emergency mode, shouting, and no, it's not going to fix it. It's just going to boil into more until the dam breaks, and that kind of is all their experience is, probably, on some level. Yeah.
So there's a distinction between venting and seeking counsel.
Like I said, you must express who you are to be. And so if your thoughts and emotions are tied in knots, that to untie it must be expressed through your thoughts and emotions, right? Talking is a good way to do that. Dialogue with a counselor who's trained to help you break bad habits can help you discern what those mental habits are that you're trying to thought stop. Not all counselors are doing this, though. Many of them are selling you hormone treatments, right? So like, be wary, buyer. But the idea that I'm supposed to just deal with it inside is very dehumanizing. Humans are made to express. what do you do when you pet the rabbit? You express something to the rabbit. And the rabbit, this one, is bred to like receive that expression and then return, right? Something that then takes in. So expression is never in isolation or alone. Venting kind of is, though. It's like, everyone shut up and let me yell.
Okay.
Right? But there's not really communication taking place. There's not harmony or discord being resolved, any of that kind of thing.
I guess why I am focused on this is because a few weeks ago we did talk about gossip and what a prevalent thing that is, especially among the women folk. And so I've been meditating on that a lot more.
That's good. I think we should meditate on the gossip that is propagandizing Rudy's cigars and their new cup. So we're just gonna
note the new coffee cup.
We're just gonna do that for a moment. So
it is a camping cup.
That was a psyop right there. I really mean it. It's a beautiful camping cup. We can tell you more about these. You got to come to Rockford to get one though. $10, great deal. That was an actual psyop on the listenership. And so if they're on fourth level, they're going to be okay. We're going to go right back to gossip though, and what an issue it really is, and how it needs to be dealt with. And I just tied a loop for any listener. I want to rewind and find out what I just did. Think about it. I planned that. Gossip is an issue that is in our churches right now. It's a major issue that is in our families right now. It's about how we spiritually see each other. That's what it's about. It's not about my tongue just yammering, although that's what happens, right? But it's about how we see. And then it is about, is my tongue serving the greater good, or is my tongue serving me? You want to fight a battle, you want to learn how to shut up the devil, right? Listen to what you say in the hearing of others. It's not what you are dreaming of all day that you are like. That's my experience. I dream all day that I'm like something, and I try to, I want to be that guy. Maybe I watch movies about that guy. I'm going to be like that guy. And then I go out and I act, and it's not the same guy, right? But it can be disciplined and controlled. You can tame the tongue in directions, bridle. I don't want to say, I'm James's perfect man. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that you work on the tongue, it will respond. So you were going to talk about gossip, and now I've brought us back again.
There was a section in Proverbs, so I was trying to find it as you were talking about it speaks to what is inside. So as a family member, my propensity to gossip is actually a reflection of my heart, my view of the person I'm talking about, or just people outside of me.
How you view people outside of you. That's right.
And
Yep.
There is a proverb.
How you view the personhood of others. Are they objects or are they subjects to you, right? And if you think of that word subject, it's got a lot of pun involved. I think much of that's synonym. But objectification of other is like a major, major threat to humanity. It means that it's narcissism is the objectification of the other. If you really want to pin that psychological bat down. So subjectification of the other is a really valuable thing, to see them as the subject of your thoughts and the subject of the conversation and the subject of the moment. That would be to be focused on someone else, right? Even to, dare I say it, begin to love your neighbor is to subjugate yourself to them, which can mean mastering them or following them. That could be either of those, actually. So it just means seeing them and then meeting them, right? And gossip doesn't forward that ever. Gossip forwards the ganging up of mob emotions against someone who's not there to defend themselves against the lack of status that now has been created. We need status to feel good about ourselves because we trade in status. Now, not all humans do, but Americans sure do. And so we have to together use our tongues to create status by stealing it from somebody else or taking it rightly. Maybe they really deserve it. They're really bad people, so we can talk about them and feel good about ourselves. But this is a game of self that's about my status being what matters. I'm the subject.
Yeah.
Again. So true wealth is really other humans. That is true wealth. Humans who love you, humans who you love. There is no greater thing than this. And Jesus knew that full well. And with humans come the world, right? Houses and homes and brothers and sisters and all that, and all creation eventually. Yeah, it's maybe not all where you want to go, but
well, I mean, no, it's good. It's going along with what I'm thinking. I cannot find the actual. Oh, maybe it's this one. No, it wasn't that one. I cannot find the actual verse in Proverbs 27, 28, or 29 that I was thinking of, but it was in that section.
Yeah.
But it did bring me to another place where in Proverbs 27, verse 14, Solomon writes, "He who blesses his friend with a loud voice rising early in the morning will be counted a curse to him." And I was curious about that because it was like, okay, so does that mean I shouldn't scream across my yard the Lord's Prayer in the morning because that will not bless my neighbor?
Yeah, it probably has something to do with that. Yeah.
Or
are you actually calling me out on that? Because you know I've done that, right?
Well, I just was thinking about like, what would that mean? Rise early in the morning.
Well, I think the heart of it is
good words, because blessing is speaking good words.
The heart of it is exactly the point that we've been hitting on, which is that you probably haven't even thought about what your neighbor really wants. And you can't even really imagine. You've never thought to ask him.
Okay.
Does he want you to call out Alleluia at 5 a.m. to him? Probably not. But he might. Maybe you could do it together. Have a conversation. Now now early in the morning, you're both happy. Mm-hmm. Right? But, combine that with, don't spend too much time at your neighbor's house. He'll grow tired of you. Right? Or you'll create a conflict. Right? Friendships between men are good, but need boundaries too, ultimately. Right? So, oh man, Solomon's so wise. It's ridiculous. Like all the language I just used to unpack it for Americans, right? It's all just right there in Solomon.
Yeah.
Just right on the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I want to draw it back to because gossip's worth spending more time on over time.
I want to keep on going.
Let's
if you can.
Let's bookmark gossip and keep that as a running theme for all of us to consider for a while. That if there's a hardening upon our churches, maybe we haven't bridled our tongues much and we're just doing our own damage. And all of us, every single one of us, would do well to consider that and seek. I mean, because Christians must do that every day, right? So if you haven't tried, get on the boat, right? You started with discernment, living in a pagan nation, recognizing what happens when the Christians are not the leaders, and then that Brief History of Power episode with Dr. Kuntz from this week, which came out Thursday.
Yeah, it's episode 140.
I can't remember what it was called. Do you remember the name?
No. Because
It's the one after Best Force Ever, which is like the best title ever that Dr. Kuntz came up with by saying Best Force Ever.
I feel like there was a D in the beginning word, like defending or.
Anyway, it's worth listening to. It is Brief History of Power at its best, where we are engaging like the real moment of probable psychological operation of some power of medium that is trying to scare us and distract us with stories about aliens that is evidently rising in the media. So he and I spent an hour on that conversation and some of the reality of aliens but also far more important, like how do you really know what stories to trust at all at this point? And why would you listen to this white noise right now? Why would you, whatever gets through it, and it got to your feed, like you think that was free? Like, you have to come find me, right? Like, so how's all this stuff getting to you? Who's putting it there? Those questions. Brief History of Power, episode 140 or whatever. Yeah, have a closure, but then let's try to come at the end of the time for. Let's get through the questions and then come back and chat some more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but share where we're gonna.
Well,
or what you're thinking though right now.
What I'm thinking, what I wanted clarification on, was the how-to of So you thought, or you're having been in the conversation with Dr. Kuntz,
Mm-hmm.
you were thinking that he was leading us to love one another
Yeah.
and coming at our, I guess, disagreements or just our interactions with each other from a place of love rather than
Coming at the coming at the slow but sometimes happening waking up to basedness of other Christians.
Okay, because I was
That they don't all
thinking
get
he was
it
talking
immediately
about-
right away. Oh, we've been brainwashed. I get it. I'm changing now. Right? Not everyone just flips a switch.
Okay.
And you have people that do, though, and then they go and they scarf all the information they can and figure out their theory of what's really going on, and then everyone has to believe what they believe right now, or they're dumb. And this is us. This is Lutherans talking to other Christians about Lutheranism. Like it's a spiritual blight on us. There's no joy, and it's bizarre. And there's no love born of it. You love one another. That is indeed it. And you can even like Missouri Synod pastors, if they're faithful, are probably quite cynical about phrases like "love the brethren," because frankly, that's the language that's used to harm us. That's how they abuse us. That's how the power that be keeps us from trying to do something right. A lot of the time was a guilt trip of loving the brethren. So the covenant of love is a way that we're told to ignore our eyes and keep to the party line. And so the devil really has done a wonder on this in just destroying that word love in American society. But then, LCMS Lutheran practice, there are people who love each other. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we don't, but we tend to not love those who haven't caught up to us yet. And it's kind of, to be Lutherans, a little bit of a game of knowledge. It's like, psst, my dog, is a game of knowledge. Whoever has the most knowledge is sort of the most Lutheran. Right?
Okay.
And why is that? Right. Well, it's because we don't think it's about love for some reason, right? Otherwise, that'd be what it's about. It's not. It's not about that among us. And he's taking us to task for that. It's very fatherly of him, honestly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was very convicting in some ways. And I thought, so I had taken it as like I'm to come from a perspective of love when I'm dealing with just any person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
I think that's true.
Pagans.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, well, what does that look like?
Yeah,
I guess that's where
there.
I'm trying to
I think here's some of it though. How are you going to love the pagans if you can't love the Christians?
Yeah.
Who you don't love, right?
Well,
and so practice on them and believe that it will just spill out. What the pagans will see is not how I love the pagan. What the pagan will see is how the Christians love each other.
Okay.
Think about it that way. Right? It's not about how much I make the pagan's life comfortable by loving him, which has been what it's kind of been. It's no. It's like the pagan has to go home to angry people at dinner. And he just had dinner at your house and it was pleasant. Right? It's more like that.
So this verse that I found in Ephesians chapter 4 helps me to put the gossip, and it is also helpful, I guess, to apply then to this concept of how do I have a mindset of love for the other, who perhaps is not as
smart.
It's like
that's the perception.
It's biblically literate, I think is maybe what Dr. Kuntz said.
Yeah.
They just haven't been exposed to scripture in the same way for whatever reason.
Enough.
So in Ephesians chapter 4, it says, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called. Verse 2, though, then goes into it more detailed. With all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. I found that to be, well, edifying, encouraging, all the above.
Wouldn't it be interesting if, like, every time,
long-suffering,
a new generation of Christians start reading their Bible, instead of suddenly deciding they need to wear head coverings, they decide they need to work on that verse?
Yeah.
What if that was like, oh, I need to work on lowliness right now?
Right.
Right. As opposed to whatever the outward show might be.
Self.
And outward show is important. Symbolism in the culture is important. Like when you have girl acolytes, it isn't a good sign, right? Getting rid of them doesn't fix it, but it's not a good sign. So I'm not denying signs, but like notice how we tend to lean toward like something I can put on my body to prove I'm trying, right? And why is that? That's more about me. I'm looking for confidence. I lack assurance.
Sure.
I lack assurance.
And the idea in verse 3, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Like that just encompasses the whole concept behind why would I be long-suffering? Why would I bear with one another in love? Why would I act with lowliness and gentleness to serve or maintain that bond of peace between each other? Because like you were saying, if I can't get along with my brothers that I am united to with Christ's body and blood,
by all believing that we're to be lowly together and work together to be under each other's influence in kindness, since he's our king, mutually speaking. Like,
then why would a pagan be attracted to anything that I do or want to join it?
Well, he'll be attracted to that unity which he can't find.
Right. But if I cannot do that with my brother, so what I'm saying is if I cannot do that with those who are in the church with me, then how could I possibly do that with somebody who is not united in faith with me?
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be difficult if you can't love your neighbor whom you see. How can you love God whom you have not seen? It's the same idea. So this pagan you're gonna love, and then they're gonna be a Christian. You don't know who this person is. This is this is a dream. It's a dream. And the person in the pew that you are like, oh, there they are. They're so good that they're here, but I have to talk to them again. Like that one, God sent. God sent that person to you to talk to. You don't want to talk to them. Like the person at church you don't want to talk to, God sent them there for you to talk to learn how to love. Just believe that. You can just assume that's true. Like I don't have to be like Fisk's opinion or nothing, right?
Well,
are you a Christian worried about the federal government rounding up Christians? Are you? Right? Okay, so whatever federal officer comes to your door to round you up because you're a Christian, that guy was the one you're going to convert. God sent her to them, to you, to convert them. Or you're going to be martyred somehow by them on the last day. They're going to confess your glory at the judgment when all comes back tenfold. So, like, there's some great assurance, again, in our faith. Where is that assurance? Why is it so hard to come by these days? That's a really important question, right? And that comes back. A lot of this comes back here in our questions from y'all on the show, which you can get your questions on the show. Super Chat's an interesting attempt. We'll see if we get there today. We got a lot going on. But thank you, Lapse Judgment. I'll recognize that they're there. Generally, those will maybe end up next week or in coming weeks as opposed to today, depending on how much coffee I avoid spilling. With my new Rudy's Cigars coffee cup here in Rockford, Illinois, go to Rudy's and I will hang out with you. Super Chat, thank you. You can send questions for the show if you don't want to Super Chat through madpxm.com, or you can also sign up for Mad Mondays, best newsletter on the internet. Keep you up to tabs on what's going on that really matters for a Christian to know. Unplug from the white noise and get your kind of little bubble of the Matrix every week with who knows what from me. I gave up planning, and I'm just going to write what I think about and feel the next couple of weeks, and last week's felt pretty solid on that end. So anyway, my newsletter, you can sign up at madpxm.com and send your questions for this show, Stop the White Noise, through the contact page there. For those questions coming up here, I have one thing I do want to throw in and share. It's a completely different direction. Well, maybe not completely.
So you're preparing us for this is like the
Well,
preview to the questions that are coming.
no, I don't think so. It might be completely different. But it's very in the vein of a lot of the things we've talked about here with regards to raising boys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, raising boys. I think. This little book is not one I expected to come across. I don't know that I can really recommend it yet. It's pretty expensive to buy because it's out of print, or at least CPH has not been recently printing it, and probably for good reason, because Brescher is, or Berscher, I can't even read the way that they write it. Brescher, Paul Brescher, is, well, kind of Seminex era liberal. So there's a lot of reasons why we might not really want to learn from him, just historically, to beware. But for reasons I'll just keep to myself for the moment, this particular resource was necessary. And so I started looking at it with really no knowledge about this guy. And I found it to be quite good so far. We're not talking about, Deutero Isaiah or JDEP. That's not in the conversation. Those would be the things that a historical critic should have. Oh, this guy doesn't believe the Bible's true. Like, that should tip you off to that kind of thing, right? But this guy does believe certain things in the Bible are true, and particularly the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. And so this is a little book on the Beatitudes, and I barely have gotten into Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He just talks for a while about to be poor in spirit is to lack a very specific thing, and he pinpoints it with the word dignity, which is a word for pride that does not mean arrogance. So I've been trying to kind of recover pride a little bit recently, because in Hebrew there's a word for pride that's almost all good.
Okay.
And the way to translate it, pride. But unfortunately, our word for pride is not all good.
Mm-hmm.
It has arrogance built in, but dignity does not. So dignity, to save a man's dignity, when he is poor in spirit, to give him spirit, right? And particularly the Holy Spirit. So just in that chapter, though, he's got a little vignette about their son. And I thought it was beautiful. It's just about a paragraph. And I wanted to read it because I thought it was insightful, and I haven't relooked at it again since this is a couple days ago. So maybe I'll be like, what did I do? Think this for?
No.
But he says, some time ago, my wife and I were caught up short when our third child, a son surrounded by 5 daughters, responded to reproof with the complaint, "I never do anything right." Now, there was a grain of truth in the statement. He did manage to get into more trouble, to do more things that were thoughtless, irresponsible, and damaging, and to evade more assigned responsibilities than all the girls together. Maybe his very position in the family, surrounded by all the niceness of femininity, only aggravated it. The point is, though, that we, with our constant commands and reproofs, were robbing him of something he, even as a child, had to have, and that is a sense of dignity and personal worth. He needed the support and confidence of his parents, too, and he had not been getting enough of it. Even a child has to have dignity. It is a dreadful thing to feel inadequate and defeated, to believe you are a perpetual failure. So I thought that was poignant. I know I've heard our boy say such things. I imagine most boys at a certain age start to say such things, but I can also see how an overbearing femininity can really drive one that way. Not having a brother to fall back on, where basically it's just about who can pound the other hardest, and this makes sense to a young man, right? So, like, I thought there was a lot of wisdom there. He doesn't go right more into child stuff at all in the next paragraph, and I only got through 5 paragraphs. I was so busy taking notes on dignity. It's in fact, Mad Mondays probably will be about dignity this week. So yeah, but just for what that's worth, I mean, I'd invite your response on it. Just the psychology of the young man and the need for him to believe in himself, and to be aware that right now the whole zeitgeist, the whole spirit of the time is against that in young boys specifically. So we don't need to protect our young boys. In some ways, we need to unprotect them a little bit.
Yeah. And that's not just in child psychology. That's in how to love your man as well. Yeah. It's frustrating for us ladies to see the instruction manual go unfollowed and then have to
Yeah.
deal with a frustrated husband
Yeah.
who's like, it's not going to work. Can't do it. And you're like, well, did you follow step 5 through 6 and 7 and 8?
No, I only count to
No,
4.
nobody needs that.
I only count to 4. It's 3 if I can help it.
And it's this desire to prove your worth.
Yes.
Without assistance. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Correct.
I don't need this instruction manual's help because I didn't ask the instruction manual for advice.
I bought a washing machine. It should have 1 button. What more? What more?
And
why do I need this book?
So
yeah, that's the thing.
To allow for the failure is huge. And so often we get the women or the feminine mind gets frustrated with that, the allowance of failure, because it's like you can just avoid it. But it's such an important integral part of being a man.
We were talking
conquering,
at
overcoming.
Hebrew and Collegium class this week. One of the guys is reading Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus as part of his. He's really focused in on familiar relations and man, woman. Becoming a man. That is really key. And
it's
so
good, and it filters. It's not just for romantic relationships. It's like filters into your mother, father.
Yeah, no, it's really,
son,
really.
daughter.
There's 2 dialects of English in every house in this
Yeah.
English-speaking country, and it's man English and woman English, and believing that alone will open up the door to a lot of miscommunication being solved. So now I'm going to lose what he brought up, though. That was the point. What were we talking about right before that?
So I was talking about how men need to fail. And
what we got into a little bit was how woman's mind and man's mind are physiologically so different, and how because of the excess of gray matter, now I'm quoting these guys, they might have reversed the colors, but because of the excess of gray matter that woman has, that in man's brain is white matter, that's what that hemispheric bridge issue is about. So the bridge that women have between the hemispheres is made of, their connection points are gray matter, which allows for instantaneous travel. Whereas white matter requires a more dialogical path, more one-to-one. You must build the bridge. You can't just jump across. Right. It's almost like the hemisphere that you've got is kind of like a big puddle, and we got a sea. And so to get across the other side, once you're on one side of your brain, that's why when a guy gets deep in his emotions, he can't just kind of come back or even talk about it. He's like lost in a morass, and he has to travel in his thinking as emotions, which he's not good at, to the side of his brain that works the way it's supposed to. Whatever that is. And I think that can go both ways, however your brain is planted, whatever memories it has. But we just can't jump back and forth, where you all can not only jump back and forth, but you can hold like 7 to 15 things at one time, emotionally and strategically. And we're like, here's this, and I need a list. Right. Right. And
about a list that you've made, not other people.
No, right. No. But like then we're gonna just do this where you're able to, you really do juggle more natively your tasks.
Which doesn't necessarily mean that it's better, because
it's built for home economics.
Right. Juggling can make for a frazzled person.
Well, it's not like it's good.
Well.
And juggling in the office is going to do the same thing. So women multitasking in the office end up being quite frazzled people because there's no end to what they can pick up. Whereas in the home, there's no end to what you can pick up, but there's only so many people, and you love them all in a different way than you maybe do at the office, and it creates a different world experience for you, and all that.
So then a friend recently came to me and was like, I don't know what to do. My son's bed is never made. His clothes are always in a rumpled pile on the floor.
Yeah.
It just breaks my heart. Like every time I go in there. He is 16.
Yeah.
Every time I go in there, it just, his brother, he shares a room with his brother. His brother's bed is made. His clothes are hung on the hooks. And
Who
I
does
just
his laundry for him?
cry. The mother does the the house laundry, but I don't know who folds it. Like
Yeah.
she washes it
I would just
and
stop
dries
doing it.
it.
I mean, if you want man answer. Man answer in man community is he just doesn't have laundry. Ever.
Yeah.
And when he complains, it is explained that until the other thing changes, he has to do his own laundry. As soon as he's going to like put it away, I'll do it for you. Like
That's
this isn't forever. It's
interesting.
just like you just have to put it away. But I'm not going to give it to you and then have this happen.
Yeah.
Now you got to take care of yourself now. Because someday you're going to live like in a trailer park or something with crap falling on your head. And I'm going to feel bad about you as your mom. I'm going to cry. Pray to Jesus that you fix your life. So I'm going to try it now instead. I mean, that's hard to do in real time, right?
Yeah.
But that is the comic book reality, the storyline, the plot that needs to happen here.
Yeah. Well, and her one son who shares the room is like, Mom, you got to stop going in there and cleaning his stuff
That's
up.
right.
He's
That's
never
right.
going to learn.
Enabling.
And
Yep.
she's like, so she came to me and said, so this is what I do. I don't do it. And then I'll get to a point where I just can't take it. And I know for my own peace and lack of stress, if I can just have that room clean, then I can move on with my day.
Yeah.
So I'll go in and I'll clean it up.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I totally see that. I see how that's helpful for you. And I see how you need that. But I also hear your other son's boy heart speaking very loudly and telling you exactly what needs to happen to speak to your other son's heart.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And it's hard and frustrating. And then the part that I left out of our conversation, and so you guys out there who are listening now get to benefit from it, is that the one who's not succeeding at the tasks she wants will not listen to her plea for help until she can laud him for what he is doing.
Mm-hmm. That's true too. Yep. That gets back to that I never do anything right.
Right.
Part, right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so how can we
Praise our young men?
Praise the boys for what they are doing instead of constantly telling them how they're missing out. It's tough because you will be walking towards them to give them a praise, and you'll step on something that you don't want to praise or that they've left out, or you'll find them doing something that you're not
Let me suggest
excited
something if
about.
you're willing to try it. And everyone out there, this is an experimental thought, but I think it's got some power to it. And it comes from something I've noticed as a family dynamic that is at our dinner table that is from my generation.
Okay.
So I take responsibility for it existing in our home, and I want it to change over time. And I've been saying this, trying to find ways to communicate this for some time without it being like, you're wrong, I'm right. No. Like, I have led us astray. And it's habit. And the habit is that the first word out of the mouth is like no or but. If you just listen outside of our conversation as a family, especially if we start dialoguing as opposed to just sharing memories. Sharing memories, we tend to just throw it on. But in any kind of talk about a thought, there's always like a no or a but or a except. And what would happen if instead you just disciplined and the first word was always yes? Always. Now it could be, yes, that hurts. Right? Because you walked toward him to praise him for some other thing and he smacked something and it hurt. Yes, that hurts. But it's yes. Not no. So I will, for my son's sake, strive to speak that way for a while on my own part. And I would suggest to all y'all out there, I mean, I don't think this is like just women to men either. I mean, you want to lead other men as a man? Try it. Just when a guy talks to you, just whatever he says, yes, and then agree with what he said, but then throw something else back. And if he says no, just going to listen, right? Okay, well, maybe you're not leader yet, right? But you'll be surprised, I think, how much men respect someone who can see what they said that was true.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just because it's not about you have to agree with me because I'm me. It's more like, no, I'm me seeing this truth. Do you see it? And you're like, see it. Right? And now we brothers. Right? In a very small way. And the hardest lesson I've had to learn as a man in America is that the way most men do this is by talking about the weather. Which I don't want to talk about the weather. I hate talking about the weather. I don't know why people talk about the weather, although I'm learning, I suppose. But But I just know this. Like if there's a guy and I don't know what to talk about, weather, he's ready. He's got theories. He's got opinions. He'll talk about next day, last day, almanacs. Like just they're every man, except for some of us, I don't know, nerdy video game guys that control the weather with codes. Like what happened that made us not care, but everyone else is like watching that outside pretty tight. And it makes for immediate bonding because what do you share locally? What does my neighbor and I in fact share from God every day?
Oh, the weather.
The weather. There you go. You know, it's actually it's not meaningless. Oh, there's the puppy.
Okay, well let's just let the bunny go.
Incoming. I know. Yeah. Shh. Thank you.
Thank you, bunny handler.
So.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's just something to try.
I think it's a good
Positive
idea.
forwarding. It doesn't mean you have to lie. The point is to try to find the truth that's there first that they have said, and then that's your bridge to them knowing they were heard.
Yes.
And then from there they'll hear you more, right?
To add to that, the same book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, talks about how to make a request to a man. So for a woman, you can ask them to do something for you almost any way, and they will understand it as just I need help, will you please do this? But for a man, if it's phrased in a way that says, can you?
That's a big deal.
It threatens their ability, their idea of who they are in the eyes of the other, because the man is fragile. His ego, he's like trying to hold up this image that he isn't really convinced himself exists.
Right.
And so if I am questioning, can you take out the trash? Then he's like, oh, I don't know if I can. I think I can, but I don't know because she doesn't think I can because she wouldn't ask me.
May I tie this to something that happened yesterday? Because it doesn't have to be a question.
Sure.
So it's something that happened. It's something you said, but you didn't mean anything more than kind of just normal conversation about an idea.
Okay.
But in the moment, I was kind of like, why is she saying that to me? Like that was like the first thought I had. And I said, I don't even remember what the topic was. It was yesterday. You were in the living room. I was in the kitchen. There were people around. And I said, this is what I want about something. And you turned around and you said, you can't do that. You need to do this. And what you said is what happened. It was, in fact, the more jurisprudent, the wise, the right thing to do. Right? Thinking it through, the right thing to do was what you suggested. But the you can't do that phrasing that was without any kind of cognizant thought about it. It's just the way that it was. Like, no, that's not how you do something. You can't do that. You do this. That just kind of came out, and then that's what I heard emotionally was that you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, I've learned, on a number of levels, I don't respond well to you can't do that. It's not my strength. You tell me you can't do that, I'm gonna be like, why? Like that's just gonna happen. It doesn't matter who you are, because I don't know why. I don't know why that is.
I don't think it's according to this book. I don't think you're alone.
Yeah, probably not. Right. So,
well, I apologize for not.
I love you.
Being more aware of.
I didn't share it publicly to get your apology, but I forgive you. Share it publicly because I don't think you really need to apologize. It's not really like it's a sin or anything like that. You didn't offend me morally. But the words that we speak, we haven't been trained in really good etiquette, honestly.
No, we haven't.
And so we have a lack of respect in the way that we talk that's been drummed into us through earbuds all day long, right? And so that lack of respect in the way that we talk, it does have friction created by it in the home. And we experience this. And so taking thoughts captive by the word of God and speaking those words instead, that's numero uno. And then if you're able to study, the language that you do speak, and you discover that, you can't do that versus there might be a reason not to do that.
I really wish I
Right?
knew what it was, because I'm like,
Yeah, I don't know.
why would I tell you you can't do that? Like, that's so forward.
Yeah, I think it may have been the car insurance thing, which both ways worked. You could do it the way I said. You could do it the way you said. Your way's easier for the new car, calling and having it set up. So yeah, all that. I think it was
so
that.
it would have been more like, well, we don't have to do that.
Yeah. Oh, even there, though, you're right. But there might be a reason not to do that. It's going to get you a lot further in my ear very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Take you, I, and we out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like we're talking about,
Sure.
blueprints for the moment, right? We don't have to be personally involved, and you can't is personal involvement on like a very direct level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, and right, and as I, so thinking on that scenario, my heart saw you getting very nervous quickly, like the insurance. We got to get the insurance notified, and it to an emergency level. And so it was like, whoa,
right,
let's just take this down 5 notches,
Right.
because we don't need to be so emergent about it.
right. No,
And so I do remember feeling like,
I bet you
slow
felt that
down.
after the can't, and I
so-
began to defend why I wanted to,
Mm.
why I could.
Mm-hmm.
I could do that, right? That was my whole thing. Yes, I can do this. That was like my entire emotional state at that point,
Sure.
right? Whereas before that, it was just, hey, Meredith, when you get a chance, can you call and try to have this paperwork ahead of time? Because I'd prefer it that way, because for me, it's easier. But see, it's not for you. That's why I'm asking you to do it for me, to help me, right? I don't have time for that, or this is too much for me. Like, that's a whole different world, right? But I was not in a hurry, but I was thinking, okay, we want to try to have this stuff by the time that we go pick up the used vehicle. Kids are buying a used car, isn't that cool? And all this. So, but the point is that, like, the language itself got me emotionally involved.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't you who got me emotionally involved. It was the language did.
Right.
And that's the inside of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That's why we recommend the book.
So
Yeah.
and
It's the same one.
His idea is absolutely taking can't out.
Yep.
And putting would
Yeah.
in their place.
Yeah,
Would
sure.
you be so kind as to take the trash out? Would you
Yeah.
take the trash out when you get a chance?
Yeah.
Will you take the trash
Right.
out?
So
that alone will make the woman speaking to the man so much clearer in his
Yeah.
head.
Yeah. So, hey, Meredith, can you call them and do this? Yeah, I'll call them. I would like to
So
do
isn't it
this.
interesting though that you can say, "Can you?"
Didn't I say could? I tried to say
You
could
just said, "Can
Okay,
you?"
well, I don't want to.
No. It's would or will.
Would or will? Yeah.
Could and can are the same.
Are the wrong. Right. So I did not intend to do that. So you've caught it in real time, which is good. Okay. I don't have the right to say can, and you can't say can.
Well, it's interesting.
It's a habit. It's a habit.
This, I think, though, is what we as women need to learn, because
And men.
as an 18-year-old coming into marriage, you taught me.
Mm-hmm.
So I mimicked
Mm-hmm.
you.
I'm sure
I
you
really
have a lot
didn't
of my language
bring
habits.
in
That's right. Yep.
much of my own because,
Yep.
I was still formational.
Yep.
And so I imitated, but isn't it interesting how a man's brain, and I know women's brain does this too on different things, but you are able to use can, meaning would you be so kind, but not receive can.
Because if I asked another man, can you cut this tree down? I would. I'm not threatening his person. I'm learning his skill set. So, but I wouldn't ask him, can you do something that I know you can do, unless it's also like, no, then it would be, would you be willing? You'd really try to move into. I'm not going to walk up to somebody, hey, can you cut my tree down? It's more like, oh, can you cut a tree down? Yeah, I can cut a tree down. Oh, would you cut my tree down? Like that layering there. So I think this language insight is really valuable. I think it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman to understand it. You saw that in real time. Go rewatch this. That was really interesting what just happened there. How I was trying to positively build on what you said, but I used the word can. And so you heard it as a negative and responded right away to point it out. Hold on. But it was
Okay.
good. It was good because I needed to be corrected because I had overstepped in trying to prove the point. I'd broken the point, and you pointed it out, which is interesting in its own dynamic, right? Everyone gets to watch this. This is good TV. So, but the point of building I wanted to get to would be that I would not have said can, and we wouldn't have had that secondary conversation about the word can a moment ago. But instead that when I said to you, hey, Meredith, will you call the insurance and tell them about the vehicle purchase so that we can have printed cards available the day we buy the vehicle? You could say, in a way that would be non-threatening to a man, sure, I'll make that call. I would like to ask them if we even need that at all. Right. Since in the past I haven't needed that, but I'll be glad to do it for you. The whole perspective is, oh, okay, so it's not about whether or not I can, let alone whether or not, like you heard me, you're willing to do what I asked. It's not about whether you'll do what I asked, but you definitely are smarter than me at this moment, and so I should listen to that. Right, like you couched
More
in there,
experience, maybe.
Yeah, you have wisdom to share, and it's like, but it's kind of packaged in sort of, non-threat. Like I don't want you or any other woman tiptoeing on eggshells, afraid of upsetting their husband because they spoke wrong. Like that would be the opposite of this going well. The way this goes well, however, is we just kind of all realize, oh, if I speak to other people in a more etiquette chosen way that has dignity and respect built into it, they'll act like they're respectable people. They'll be more respectful back because it's just going to happen. It's going to happen. Yeah. That made me think of something I'm going to reserve for private. But
I have noticed going shopping at Walmart and looking at their sticker selection. So you remember when
rude.
we were little, did I bring this up before?
No, I just have seen it too.
You did?
No, I just know, like I've seen stickers and t-shirts,
Okay.
and it's all about like
So
how rude we can be.
used to have stickers put on our homework papers that said like great job and super and awesome and way to go. Now they say as if, and that was dumb and really?
Yeah.
With like
Sad.
llamas in sunglasses. Like it's supposed to be the you're awesome sticker, and it says you are a terrible person in so many words.
It's how to be a snotty girl. Is what it is.
So as we've been talking about gossip and thinking about holding one's tongue or being in control of one's tongue,
Yeah.
I've learned my own heart has been consumed by, I don't know if consumed might be too intense of a word, but
pressured
like
by,
just
felt.
led by this idea that I need to be witty, spunky, and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of my comebacks need to be witty, spunky, and fun. And I don't read in Ephesians 4 that I'm supposed to be witty, spunky, and fun. I see that I need to have a mindset of lowliness, a mindset of gentleness, and bearing with one another in peace.
Yeah. I have this weird like hunch about humor that I don't know I can convince anyone on. I've spoken about it before, but I think sound like an idiot to our family when I do.
Well, you sound a little. Do I say yes to that? No, I don't say yes to that. I say, I see how you can say that.
That's good.
From our responses, perhaps. However, I think more what it comes off as is someone who's condemning laughter. And I don't believe that's what you desire to
not
do.
At all. Not at all. I think laughter is given from Jesus, and that indeed funny and jokes probably are just fine most of the time, or much of the time. Although, again, in a society filled with cynicism, scoffing, and evil, in which that's what you listen to 98% of the time, now your tongue's going to be tearing down all the time while you laugh. And that tearing down is not going to be good laughter at all, really. So it's not really laughter in that sense, or it is. It's wicked. Wicked laughter is pretty gross. My hunch is all just this realization. The Bible never really tells you, make sure you laugh. Laughter is not a big topic in the Bible. I know that, like, if you watch like a Jesus movie, they always make sure he's got like this nice moment, so he's human and happy, But like, that's BS. That's made up. He's a man of sorrows. We don't know if he laughed. He might have never laughed. I think he probably did, but like, why is that the big pressure point for us now? We idolize laughter. We really do. And the Bible's one time it talks about joking. It likens it to insanity and chaos. And then just run that through. Why is the bad guy called the Joker? Who's all for insanity? Well, what is that? What is about humor that they were picking up on in Batman? They know intuitively, psychologically, that someone to whom everything's a joke is just going to tear down. Nothing's really good if everything's a joke.
Yeah, and it's hard to trust someone who's constantly joking.
Because you don't know what they mean.
They don't, and what is real.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm not against jokes. I think there's a place for laughter and all this. I just think maybe at a time such as this, a lot of repentance, slowing down, backing off, and rebooting with intentionality is kind of important. And so whatever habits you have for like laughter that have been founded upon TV are probably not good habits. Am I insane to suggest this? I mean, it sounds that way to anyone who's like living on TV and hasn't thought it through, but like just like from a human perspective world, this machine is going to teach you how to think and feel. So you say, I can use it for good. Okay, use it for good, right? But then know that, whatever it's telling you to laugh at isn't what the Bible tells you to laugh at, because the Bible doesn't tell you to laugh at stuff. So you're letting the pagans tell you how to laugh. I think that sounds like foolishness. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I laughed, didn't I now? What is the right place for laughter? I think that you have to find that on the other side of joy. You find that on the other side of praise. So before we're laughing at the table at jokes that we say about this, that, or thing that was bad or whatever, it's how do we praise each other until the point where we're laughing? Well, that would be an interesting thing. Also, there is this side of it. I mean, if you can believe for a second that your entire life is a sitcom for the angels, at which every moment of slapstick, they just rejoice. So when I spill the coffee, like it's slapstick, it's like, that was funny. Like they laughed. That was great. If you can just kind of think that way, there's a lot of little mistakes in life that you can actually laugh at. Just say, oh, that was funny. Look what happened on the show, so there's a place for laughter, and it's in dealing with pain. It definitely is for dealing with pain. But scoffing laughter does not deal with pain. It creates pain, and that's a tough nugget right there. I think for any heart to walk through, you don't just think that one through and then change your mouth. It's not that easy. So, yeah. No, I want our table to be filled with laughter, but respectful laughter, right?
Yeah. The space where our table has entered into developmentally is we're still clumsy. Mm-hmm. We're learning how to not just regurgitate information. Mm-hmm. So grammar phase, we're learning how to think about the information. Mm-hmm. And then the other side of the table is also learning how to think about the information from A and then recall information from B and put them together mm-hmm. and express it in a way that others can follow the connection.
Yeah, right.
So we're just real clumsy communicators in general at our table right now.
Right.
But I think that having those goals is a super laudable
thing. Well, the modeling then has to begin with me. So the one who will say yes most at the table first must be the head of the table. So for the change to take place, it's my tongue that must change. Me telling everyone how they should change their tongue as the head of the table isn't going to change anyone's tongue. They'll then tell everyone else what they should do because that's what I've created.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of being what I want them to be, I keep telling them to be it. And so then that's how they're going to treat others. Instead of being what ought to be and believing others will see that. That doesn't mean there's no place for critique or growth or discipline. There's place for discipline. But I have not gone very far yet in even applying, or certainly not succeeding at being a positive beam of glory at the table. Last night went pretty well, though, I thought.
I think the last 2 nights have gone well, and I really appreciated the psalm at the end of supper.
Oh.
Not last night, but the night before.
It's not
That
a
was
bad
helpful.
idea to just do that. Start that as the entry. I tried that with Proverbs once for a couple of days, and we did okay. And then
Proverbs is a little more of like a breakfast kind of mentality,
you need a
because
wake-up
it's like
brain for that.
a go get 'em
Yeah, you're right about that.
kind of attitude.
That's the
And
nice thing about the Psalter.
the Psalter's
sort
just
of,
this shh moment, you know?
sometimes.
Gotcha.
It's got some pretty
Well,
apps. But
even
you're right.
the spicy stuff where he's calling out, against our enemies, like that after a day of witnessing the turmoil in the world around us is very soothing. At least for me, I see it as soothing and comforting because it's one of those reminders, oh yeah, Jesus has got my back. I really don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, amen. Well, that's right. That's right. Sanctifying the day with prayer begins by just opening it and reading it out loud and not trying to do more and not believing you need to do more. That it was just there. God was present in your life. You just spoke. Hallelujah. Move on. Go get ready for bed.
Don't even plan what psalm it is. Just open to the psalms. Which one's there? Jink. That's the one we're going to read. Like you could do it that way.
Yeah, I've been doing I have like 1/12 of the Psalter kind of highlighted in a long game project to make it so I can open to any page in the Psalter. And there's like thematic color scheme arrows so I can jump into a certain color and know I'm going to find a certain type of topic. And then from there, read on the page other things that would connect to it but aren't necessarily going through the whole psalm, but use the biblical language within a page that is all built together as a theme in the page.
That sounds very helpful for a collect.
Yeah, right? It's just the dream is like it's a wizardry book, right? Like I don't believe in wizardry in the magical sense of the word, but like these are powerful words of God, and so to understand it so deeply that I can look at it and then weave it back together in present time as truth is just a fun little kind of game for studying the Psalms, right?
Well,
How do you
exciting.
gamify your study? And that's a major question I'm always asking. How do I make the study fun?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting quest, and I'm curious because of being somebody who just spoke about how we don't need to be jolly all the time and looking for fun.
Yeah.
Like it really is a driving force in your life.
Well, so the game, I maybe shouldn't have said the word fun. Gamification isn't about fun. It's about having a carrot rather than a stick. So it's about reward system, and fun is a reward. If you enjoy doing something, it's rewarding to do it. Whether or not that reward sticks around with you after you're done is kind of about the value of the thing. But you can enjoy hard work. It can be rewarding to do hard work, right? So what I find rewarding is being able to open and see this kind of thing here, which I'm not sure if anybody can see. Oh, there's scribbles on the pages. But like Psalm 42 is one that everyone knows the beginning of, as the deer pants for streams of water, or everyone should know. It's one of my least favorites, probably because the song that kind of is about it and kind of really isn't, and is a very feminized view of the deer in the song that really is about distress and fear. But so I always struggle to start the psalm because of that verse, and because it just goes in kind of where the music from that schmaltzy song is. But if I kind of reorient it on the page and just go top to bottom along this way, right? Why are you cast down on my soul? And why are you disquieted within me? Well, that's a question I have all the time for myself. I start right there, no trouble. And then the next verse I look at is 6. I skip half of the verse, and oh my God, my soul's cast down within me. So I just take the same language and pray the prayer. Therefore, I will remember you, right? So to me, that's a pretty good morning right there. That's exactly right. I wake up like, soul, why am I here? And it's, I'm asking my soul why I'm here. God, right? Like that learning point. But the way I have learned that path of wisdom from my own heart as a prayer is by praying the psalm out of order, which happens when you just kind of open it having been there and try to work on, like, I know this corner, I understand over here, or so. So to me, it's a way of learning to see the page quickly. And by the time I'm done, I'm going to know all of Psalm 42. It's like not like I'm going to get the verse numbers wrong or something just because I read it in a different order to understand it, you know. But when I do that, it's not like it's always about, I don't like this song or whatever. But the idea that I can open the Bible to anywhere in my Psalter, and because I've been there with this sort of color coding plan, know where I am a little bit, pray it. Like I just love that.
Yeah.
And it's not about it being fun though. That's more about like, no, that's a very rewarding thing. Very rewarding thing. And using different colors and not just highlighting, but kind of just instead of squaring around, like look here, start here, and then an arrow over here. You could just find your favorite nuggets really quick, basically, right? So anyway, that was probably a little more time on that than needed to be, but
well, it's intriguing to hear what your mind has to
thank you for that.
say about
I'm glad you're
these
intrigued by
things.
my mind. I appreciate the praise. Thank you. Oh, what is that? I actually felt good, and then I shamed myself internally about it. Isn't that weird? Right there, live TV. Welcome to life, huh? What a time. Let's jump into questions here. If you like the show, you can support us at patreon.com, subscribestar.com, RevFisk both times. You can get a link to that at RevFisk.com, where a lot of good stuff shows up. A question here from Keith. Keith says, good day, Pastor and Mrs. Fisk. My question is in regard to 1 John 4, verse 18. How do I overcome fear? I believe in Christ and his atonement for my sins, and that we are saved by grace through faith. Yet I still fear the punishment of God in the next life for my sins. There is not a day where I do not contemplate the last day and what it will mean. So, assurance of faith, it's an ever-present fountain of youth for church bodies. I mean, and for theological traditions. You have arguments scholastically about what creates assurance of faith, and we can tell you for sure this creates assurance of faith, and yet church bodies that have all the right answers still have people without assurance of faith. So it's something of a mystery where the Spirit blows, when he blows, as he'll blow. But I think that's the issue here, and I hope by the end of the answer, Keith, to give you some assurance of faith. I don't know you're going to get it from reading anything as a law that you need to keep to prove that you have faith. So if your judgment of whether or not you have faith rests in any way on what you need to do, you're going to end up with a lack of assurance somewhere. It's 11. It gets through the whole lump. So your assurance has to come from the knowledge that God has spoken to you. You didn't do anything, God spoke to you. And if you are a non-sacramental Christian, then you have to believe this is through a vision or a big, powerful emotion or something like that, which you would equate with the Word of God. Right, which may in fact have been caused by the Word of God. If someone spoke to you the Word of God, and then it moved your heart. Like in fact, it did happen with the Word of God. But for some people, it's also just a lot more about your emotions and the music or whatever. For the Orthodox Christian, that's Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, Lutherans, some Anglicans. Well, you know that you have assurance because you've been baptized into Christ. That's just it. You've been baptized into Christ. There's no arguing with God about this. He's baptized you. And then someone's going to argue with God about this and say, but what about those who are baptized and don't believe? And the answer is that they don't believe. Isn't that they're lacking a little assurance in their faith? They don't have faith with a lack of assurance. They don't believe. But for the person who has faith and lacks assurance, well, the baptism's there to give you assurance. That's what it's there for. The person who doesn't believe, they're not looking at the baptism as as why they're not believing. Like, I don't believe because God baptized me. That's why I don't believe. Like, it just fell away. It's like they threw the crown off, right? But for anyone who's got the crown hanging on the ear, well, then the assurance is there. You know you're baptized. God has chosen you. And you must enter every other piece of Scripture from this truth. And that must isn't even a command like you must as if you could. It's that God's going to pull you out of judging yourself based on you into knowing that you've been judged in Jesus Christ, crowned on the cross for you. And so now his perfect love is going to drive out your fear by that promise itself. But wait, I still have fear. Well, then shut up and hear the promise again. God's perfect love is going to drive fear out of you. But not today. Enough. I need more now. No, you don't. He gave you enough for today. The promise is there. Believe it. On the last day, you're not going to have anything to fear. You're going to believe on that day all the more. There'll be nothing holding back. But I don't know if I know, Pastor Fisk. Of course you don't know if you know. You're trying to sink your faith into your own heart. Stop it. Sink your faith into the water and the word, or the bread and the wine and the word, or at the very least, believe the miracles themselves in the New Testament that Jesus Christ has risen for the sake of all creation, right? And so unless you hate him, you're with him. Now, how do you know if you hate him? Do you hate his words? You can say you love Jesus and hate his words, so it's not about what you say. No, it's about what he's created in you. Has he inspired you a desire to be a Christian and to love his word? Well, then stop wondering if you are one. For pity's sakes, have mercy's sakes, really, right? I get it. You're going to have a doubt. You're going to have doubts. You're not going to have like full assurance where you never once are like, oh, I'm not sure. But the gospel is the assurance of faith that God's going to do it, not you. And you heard it. You heard me say it. So therefore, he's doing it right now. That's what he says. You can insist on not believing him, and okay, fine. But that's your choice now. And your question isn't sounding like you think you have a choice, right? Victimization. There it is again, right? So here, let's look at the text that you asked about, which is a good text. It's important. It's near the end of John. It's not the end of John. John's definitely focused on love as a concept throughout the book, more so, in terms of its thematic use than probably any other book in the New Testament. 1 John just uses the word love a lot. He says, verse 17 of chapter 4, love has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. I mean, what a statement there. You're worried about the day of judgment? Love has been perfected in us, in Christianity, so that Christians may have boldness in the day of judgment. This isn't your love. He's going to say that by the end of the paragraph. He's not talking about your love yet. Will he talk about your love? Sometimes. But a lot of the time, what he's really talking about is Jesus, right? Jesus has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, right? So the particular power of the Christian is we literally get to be like, oh, judgment day is taken care of. That really resolves everything, actually. Now I can just sit back and be like, okay, so what did God give me? And if he takes it away, guess what? It's all going to come back. Every bit of it and more. Like what I have here is like ash compared to what's coming. And I don't have to pay for anything when it's coming. But I have all this here now, and it's just ash, except for everyone else doesn't think it's ash. But maybe I can use it for their good then and help them see what really has value. Like the whole thing gets turned upside down when you believe the promise that you are assured of salvation because Jesus has risen from the dead, and it doesn't matter if you choose to believe it right now. Like the promise just went in your ears and you heard it and you did believe it, right? It's okay. Now believe that you believe it because God said it, not because you chose to believe it or because you need to find it in your own heart. Stop looking for the perfect flesh. You're not going to find it. Love has been perfected among us in this, that we have boldness in the day of judgment. The faith of Jesus Christ is to know, oh, I'm free on judgment day. Yee-haw, let's run. And so for this reason, there is no fear in love, right? So this love of God poured out on you for judgment day takes away the fear of judgment day. There is no need to fear God with regard to works righteousness in the day of wrath. That doesn't mean that your evil can't have ramifications here that come back upon your head. So he's not saying like speeding's okay now, don't fear the cop. That's a pretty dumb thing to take out of this. He's talking about your relationship with the Father in heaven, and that between you and the Father in heaven now, his Son, who is the everlasting King, has called you friends and adopted you as an heir. Like this is the promise. This is not the if. This is not when you figure it out. This is the declaration that starts the whole thing. It just comes out of nowhere and says, this is who you are. So believe it now. Again, like curse the demon that's challenging you. Say, Jesus Christ rebuke you. And believe you've been chosen by God. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. You now are free not to run away from God, but to run to God. And when you sin and see your wickedness and feel the need to run away, all the more is when you're like, wait, whoa. I got another spirit working in me besides that one. I can actually stop what I'm doing, see that it's all wrong, see that I want to hide it, and tell myself no. Like, that's repentance. Expect it. Expect it regularly. Regularly. Fear involves torment. Right? What an interesting statement there.
Mm-hmm.
He who has fear has not been made perfect in love. And so, again, what is the fear we're talking about? We're talking about fear of God, fear of God's torment of you, believing God is a trickster. I still struggle with this one a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm less afraid of the final day's wrath, but I lose assurance in day-to-day action where I think if I make the wrong decision, God's going to like this. He's just waiting to pull the carpet out from under me and like show me how weak I am. Right. And that's a horrible way to think of God. That's not like my father loving me, right? That'd be like my father being my worst enemy's, like my bully's friend or something like that, right? So in any case, then, so the love of the Father then is declared in verse 19 and verse 18. We love him because he first loved us, verse 19 there. That is the source of all of this talk about love. And so perfect love, Jesus casts out fear. That's his proper work because fear involves torment. So your relationship with God in Jesus Christ is to be built upon the promise that God has no desire to torment you. You specifically. He's chosen instead to glorify you. And so whatever you experience that you might think is torment, you're just wrong. And it's in fact good for you. And then learning to see that, well, that's a real power. That would be called the fear of God in the Old Testament, to be able to see that. So here's something else to maybe help with a little bit. I think this is kind of important as a concept that, and I hope I can make it clear as I say it, that fear and love and trust are three edges of the same emotional experience in the human body and soul. That there really isn't fear or love or trust. Those are three ways that the same spiritual person reacts to the same inputs, right? So what I fear, I love. What I love, I trust. That is just going to be true. And you can test it. You'll find it. And what you love, you'll fear. And what you trust, you'll love. And all three of them, if you had a three-sided coin, right? I'd say fear and love are two sides of the same coin, but fear and trust are also two sides of the same coin. There's three of them. And Luther was a genius to put them all together at the heart of the first commandment. To have no other gods is to fear, love, and trust. It simply means to have no other gods. That's the unifying factor. There's no other God that you believe in.
Mm.
You only believe in the one true God, and so you fear him, you love him, you trust him. And all of those are the same experience of the New Testament language is trust for a good reason. But now look at this. St. Paul or St. John says New Testament language love too, right? To love God is to trust God, not to like have romantic feelings or erotica toward God. Like that's nonsense. And so the perfect love of God for you is the promise to drive out your fear of God. And if you still have some, of course you do. You still are in the flesh. But that doesn't change that the perfect promise is that it will drive out the fear. And so begin to fight your fear with the promise that God's love is going to drive the fear of God out of you over time. Believe what it says right here in the verse that scared you so much. I hope that got through. I really do. Right, this is to encourage you that his perfect love is going to drive out your fear of God, which amazingly will turn it into the fear of God that's the good one, which means you'll fear men less. Because really, what you tend to fear is men as if they were God. That's most of our fears as modern people. And so to stop fearing man, that's the real power of loving and fearing God. But so then here we have this issue. Is John saying that the fear of the Lord, as the Old Testament talks about it, is no longer true? No, he's using different language to talk to a different audience about the same reality, which I would suggest you always bundle as a Lutheran under trust, which we sometimes call faith. We always call it faith. We should bundle it under trust, justification by trust. How do you receive justification from God? You trust what he says when he justifies you. That's it. He says, I justify you. You're like, okay. Right? And yeah, you can't even have the power to do that by your own reason or strength. But then you have said, okay, right? You've said, amen. You said, I want to, right? I'm still weak. Help my unbelief. Good, fine. But the assurance is going to be when you believe that you're lying to yourself about your assurance. And then speak the promise back to yourself. I've been baptized. I've been anointed. I've been chosen. Yeah. I believe he's risen from the dead. I want to follow Jesus. Jesus, I repent of everything that's keeping me from following you. Help me. Like, just say that. Just say it. And then, like, you're good, man. Like, assurance, walk on that foundation. And am I saying, like, just go back and now go out and live a hedonistic, licentious life? No, I mean, that's going to choke your faith. So if you love Jesus, he's your master, well, then his word's going to matter a lot to you, especially in the morning before your day gets going. It's really valuable to hear a word from the master. He's going to send you with the direction you should go. So, of course, you're going to study his word. Of course you are. Yeah? But not as though it were the tool to fix what he's already promised to be fixed. It's fixed. Assurance of faith is the gospel. Right? Not that it is justification by grace through faith. It's assurance of faith. That's exactly what it is. So I want to also point out this then. So in John 15, Jesus says this. He says, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends. If, when, as you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name he may give you. These things I command you, I would suggest, in order that you love one another. So all of that is so that we love each other. He has the greater love, which lays down his life for us, calling us his friends. I have called you friends. Now, the bit about if you do whatever I command you, of course, Lutherans will be like, I can't keep the law. I can't do what he commands. Therefore, this is not a verse to encourage. But stop. Do whatever I command you. What in the context, he just means like hold to my word, which, yeah, you can't do it perfectly, but no, you really, as a Christian, you can hold to Jesus' word. Like, that's what he gave you the power to do. That's what faith does. It clings to his word. So, do what I command you means just keep listening, keep trusting, keep praying. You didn't choose me, I chose you to do this. You're going to bear the fruit of trusting the word through the collapse of every age that is. Not a single age doesn't collapse until the last one, right? So perfect love drives out fear, yes, but that doesn't mean you never have fear. It means you know what the fear of Jacob really is. You know who the terror of Isaac really is. The God of Abraham is to be praised in his fearful wonder because his great ferocity is the zeal of love and loyalty that makes him ultimately trustworthy for you. It's like even his great wrath has been turned down upon the devil and the world and your flesh in order to save your soul. Don't worry about assurance. It's like it's just the wrong question, right? If you can get there, write a note about it. It's the wrong question. Put that behind a crucifix and pray about it every day for a while. And trust. It's going to pass. It's going to go away. Assurance is there. The text, the gospel is assurance. That's what it is. My wife has been studiously discovering things in the scriptures while I speak.
Well, my heart goes out to Keith. I mean, this is a really tough place to be in. And like you said, it's not a place that he's alone in.
No, not at all.
Because these oftentimes someone once said the reason for these trials, these times of doubt, is so that we dig deeper and our faith might be strengthened through the study and the diligent prayer and reliance upon his word. And so in the one sense, it's like a blessing to have this moment of, oh, I'm terrified.
It's a moment of glory.
Yeah, but it's not fun.
Nope.
It's not enjoyable to go through.
Nope, it's not a joke.
No.
Yeah.
And so I was honestly, I was reading through 1st and 2nd Peter, because I find Peter to be so fatherly in the way he speaks.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything specifically that popped out that I'd be like, oh, this is the nugget that Keith needs to hear.
Right.
But the whole overarching just bend of Peter's words and how he is drawing his children back to the scripture that they've known. He's like, do not forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not forget what the prophets have said. Do not forget what the Lord has said and what the eyewitnesses have written.
Yeah.
And don't let that be stolen from you as you face trials of many kinds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I was doing. That's where you caught me in.
It's good. It's good stuff right there. I'm gonna move us on for the sake of time, but that's spot on, Meredith.
Is that Keith again?
Yeah, well, there's a Keith for sure. Is it the same Keith? I don't know. On this week's Brief History of Power, was it episode 140?
140 is what I saw.
That's a lot of episodes.
Congratulations.
BriefHistoryOfPower.com. On this week's Brief History of Power, aliens and UFO sightings were discussed. What? Lutheran pastors talking about these things are not in the Bible. I didn't catch a clear answer on what you make of them. Really? Interesting. Are these sightings entirely made up, or are we just seeing tricks from demons? A fellow church member in my congregation is a retired Navy pilot and has had plenty of encounters with these unidentified flying objects, apparently for years. This has been going on. I'm thinking demons are playing with us to encourage doubts. That's a good guess, Keith. That's a good assumption, Keith. That's a good working principle, Keith. It's like foundational knowledge for the Christian right there, right? Assume the demons are working to distract you. Just doesn't matter what story. Just assume. So sightings, Yeehaw.
Well, and then in the episode too, you guys talk about how the distraction to keep us away from our assurance that we find in Scripture, and the fear of like suddenly
every single one of these stories
I'm
is
terrified.
What are you going to do to save yourself story.
Yeah.
That's right. The aliens are here. What will become of us? And that they're just popping out all the time. In the last 3 weeks, there was a lead up though. We're looking at about a 4 to 5 year. Local recording stopped. So that might be a lack of space on my hard drive through a hidden storage thing that I thought I turned off. So it looks like we're still broadcasting, which is fine. I need to delete those local recordings. That means this thing's full. It was Ruskin Road, Tim Ferriss, 2017. Yep. I listened to an interview with a Navy pilot when they had just begun declassifying some of the documents about jet speed encounters over off the California coast with these radar discernible objects that move like God's throne. Actually, if you know God's throne from Ezekiel, they move like that. It's probably not God's throne. I mean, it could be though. That'd be really. There's only one of them this whole time. It's the cherub. Oh, that'd be really interesting. But like, of course, it's UFOs. Of course, we don't know what this is, but it couldn't be spirits. Spirits, even though you can't see them usually, or they're just more of a blur than anything, and you can only detect them with special radar equipment. They're not spirits. They're natural phenomenon, probably aliens, right? So, like, notice how just the inability to think clearly because you don't believe spirits exist just happens in the moment, right? And now you've got all these theories about where, what, who. Let's back up for half a sec here, though. I want to go at just the theoretical position. Can there be life on other planets? If intelligent life was created by God the Father on other planets and shows up here and says, hi, we're intelligent life. Is that possible in the created order that the Bible teaches? I think that's a really important question. And I'm willing to be corrected on this. I'm willing to be debated on this. I'd love to find a solid answer on this. I think I have one. And we don't know. Which means possibly. But until I can know, which means, you show me a video of some alien in an underground facility, and I've seen movies too. Whatever. Big tunnels. Okay. Whatever. I've seen movies too. You can do whatever you want with a camera right now. So whatever. But I'll work on the principle that the demons are messing with us to distract us until, like, there's actually aliens. Like, I see one, right? Because everyone who tells stories with cameras has earned the right to be distrusted at this point, as a principle too. Like, I will distrust what the camera says unless it does jive with reality as I have come to know it, which doesn't include the movies I've seen. It includes only what I've practiced as I get away from the screen telling me how to think. And in that world, which is the Bible's world, the likelihood of there being intelligent life on other planets that comes here is far smaller than the likelihood of the demons who are bound with chains of gloomy darkness being here trying to destroy the planet through all types of imitation and projection and whatever they can do, because they do indeed work wonders, and inhabit people and all these kinds of things. So, like, that just makes a lot more sense out of all of it. My favorite piece of this here is that there is a... This came up as a conversation because I saw a video by a guy who now is deceased who, was claiming to expose a bunch of government stuff underground on the west coast of America in a war against the aliens that we accidentally discovered there after World War II. And he's the only one who knew about it, or others do but won't talk about it. And he's going to commit suicide someday, but he won't ever commit suicide one day. But you got to know when it happens that that's the deep state making him die. And then he did. He was found dead, and it was called a suicide. And so he'd kind of prophesied his own murder is what it looked like, because he was telling the truth about the alien war underground. And oh, look, that must make it true, right? What a story. Now, here's just the piece of this that, if you're willing to believe demons exist, changes the whole reality. A demon inhabiting a man can convince the man to tell a story for 35 years, including the story that someone's going to maybe try to kill him and he doesn't want to die. But if he would never commit suicide, so if you see that he's committed suicide, that therefore you can know the lies he's been telling for 30 years are all true, and then the demon will say commit suicide and he'll do it to prove the story in the medium that he's casting. Oh, dear heavens, can you hear the magic in the words? So again, I suggest that from the very beginning you just assume, oh, they're talking about aliens again. It's probably demons. Oh, they're talking about AI again. Oh, it's probably demons. Like just kind of handle all of it from that space. The final frontier. And then if they actually show up and are talking, and you have a conversation with one, you have the chance. Like, he comes to the door with his laser gun or whatever. Do you have a universal language decoder? Like, see if he speaks back or whatever. But, like, have you heard of Jesus Christ? Would kind of be the next thing to say to an intelligent non-human being. Like, that would be the conversation to have. Because if there is intelligent life in the created order that the Bible made, right, that we see now, other planets like us to meet and talk to, they have to experience a fallen creation without really having a clear understanding of what that is from nature, since they would not have the same... They didn't cause the fall the way we did, unless we planted them somehow pre-flood or some... I don't believe that at all, though. The flood killed all but 8. So in any case, they would kind of want to know about our religion, probably. And so I think they might even, biblically speaking, they might consider it to make a lot of sense of the experience they've had in nature up to this point. And so it would be a really valuable thing for humanity to be able to tell them about Christ, should we even remember such a thing. There's even a movie about this based on evolutionary theory from the guy who made the movie Aliens, and that it all goes wrong in the end with the alien who is supposed to be helping humanity finds out we killed Jesus and we weren't supposed to. We were supposed to have him be our king. And it's really weird. It's a totally pagan movie. Forget what that one's called. Doesn't matter. The other possibility is that alien life that exists somewhere else is more just like wildlife. Like, you actually got monsters in space, but then they're not going to build ships, probably. So we might find them. I don't know. Would that prove God doesn't exist? No. It would just prove that, like, viruses and plants and fungi potentially are not only on this Class M planet Earth, but there's nothing to prove that yet. Nothing. But some guys' refusals to believe that demons exist. That's largely the proof. Is demons don't exist, so. Right? So how do you explain all of this other stuff that's going on? Are there really underground facilities built by the U.S. government? Yeah. That's how we shoot nuclear bombs. What else is going on in many of these facilities that are run by, deep state federal agencies or whatever you want to call it? Like, who knows? Demon worship? Probably in one of them. I mean, at least, right? Why not? But like, does that mean it's a war against actual aliens? Are you like trying to live in these far off places is really the temptation, right? That's really the temptation. And this story about aliens puts you immediately in a far off place, where you have to like reckon with what's happening over the air of Los Angeles, because what? And so the questioner asks, I know a pilot who saw stuff. Yeah, I don't know what angels and demons do. What Dr. Kuntz has suggested, and I'm kind of with him, is that subatomic physics, including nuclear science in its initial beginnings, is more complex than we believe it to be, and has more involved with it than we believe it to be, because we don't believe in spirits. And so who knows what rifts in like wickedness and portals of demonic trickery are being done where. We don't know. We don't believe in it. We don't test for it. We don't look for it. We don't assume it's ever there. So when it shows up, then the only answers we have are aliens, right? Who knows? So what I do about this, I pray about it. Jesus, give me wisdom in this. Protect me from the liars whose consciences are seared. And then, since I personally am ready to welcome the alien invaders who come in peace and in fact are geniuses and want to hear about Jesus, I'm welcome to our planet. And I'll shoot the zombie ones that are alien like and beast like and want to eat us. If that's what the war of the future is. But those are so unlikely, really, that I can't really prep for that. And the day it happens, I'm just going to have to be at my best. So, okay. But until then, I'm going to live with the biblical narrative about what's normal: marrying, giving in marriage, building, rising, kingdoms coming and going until Jesus returns. And let the war against the lies of the demons that distract us from that story be the war. And then, so why suddenly this big story about aliens? Why? More important than aliens, right? Because Roswell, New Mexico, Area 51, this is all part of this. There's a big lore, X-Files. Everyone grew up on this stuff as like TV, okay? Do you know, Meredith? I don't know if I've told you this. I mean, it's been a pretty profound year. Last year, the CIA admitted that they effectively killed JFK.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what's happened?
Tell me.
Nothing. Why would they admit that? I think there were some dates involved with like certain things being released, but no, really, like Pfizer still hasn't released all of its documentation, right? It's like 10,000 pages a week for like however many years. So like, why would they let that out right now? At a time when our trust in the U.S. government is as an all-time low as a populace, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. You think it's all about to fall apart, and you think the other party is completely in control, and you think that everyone hates everyone and we're all going to die. Right? Because the government's evil. Fascist, communist, MAGA, whatever. Okay? And it's at that moment that these federal agencies that are really running the country decide to let us know that they, in fact, have done great evil to us over time. They don't care. Anymore.
Yeah. At
all. They're testing us to see how pliable we are. They're effectively demonstrating the brainwashing power of the machines.
Yeah.
That now, it is just, they killed, that movie was right. Okay. Right. And that's where we are as a populace. That's how much we think and do. I mean, who got drafted last night or 2 nights ago? That's what matters now. Yeah. So, I'm always encouraged by y'all out there who have dropped sports. I'm not angry at any of you who have not dropped sports. I don't understand. I'm just living in a different world than you are right now. I probably am more concerned about food in the future than you are. And that would explain the difference in the way we look at sports. So it's neither good nor evil, and I fully admit I might be wrong. But I really am encouraged when I hear someone say, and this happened yesterday at the cigar shop, and it wasn't just the guy I was meeting there, just kind of like say, I just hate this stuff. There was the post NFL draft stuff was up. It's just so stupid. I don't know how anyone even listens to this anymore. We're in so much trouble, and no one's ready. And then he told his story of why he thinks the world's in a bad spot. And it's like, yeah, I agree with like everything you just said. And whoa, I didn't know that part. That part's top secret. Oh, no, it wasn't really top secret. But like, it was like, his life and his professional life and all the things he sees. It reminds me a little of the, conversation I had with a dentist 20 years ago. Vicarage. He gives me a free cleaning, and he wants to talk to me about corruption in the field and how everyone he knows is just selling drugs to get free vacations.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to maintain integrity in the business. This is like 2005.
Yeah, that was rough.
That's where we were then as a society.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think we are now? And you can do all sorts of other stuff. I mean, so while there actually are enough immigrants crossing our southern border on any regular basis to have several state governments declaring emergencies and even states of semi-war, calling up militia to try to stop the number of people coming in who are undocumented, which doesn't necessarily mean they're from South America. It can mean they're like, I don't know, trained military agents from China. Like that could be like platoons coming in. Like that's more realistic than alien war underground in Nevada, right? Why? What are we really being distracted from? And I'm not saying that it's that China is necessarily planning a land war, but like, that makes more sense than aliens to me. Okay, that seems more realistic than aliens. A land war on this planet by powers that have philosophical differences and need resources happened before. Aliens, not yet. Right. So do you see where I'm at? And then demons behind all of this, right? So what is my answer? Yeah, until it's aliens, it's demons. And by aliens, now I mean, extraterrestrial. See, demons would be extraterrestrial. They're not of Earth or of heaven. So what we really mean is like non-Earth from the heavens. See, it's all from heaven. This is a crazy thing too. Like in the Bible, the space is the heavens too. Like they'd have to be. They are angels or demons. Like if aliens show up, they're angels or demons. They just might have physical angels from other star systems, maybe. I don't even know what to make of that. But we don't have to. That's not normal until it's real. Don't believe what you see on TV. Why would you believe it? I didn't see it on TV. I don't watch TV. Okay, you scroll Twitter and you watch the video. It's TV, everybody. Come on.
Television.
The end of sight. The end of sight. The zombie machine. Yeah. The movie.
Yeah.
I can probably say more, but yeah, go.
The concept of understanding that there's a lot of distraction there. It's I don't as you was listening to you speak about it, I wondered to myself if that's something in man or if it's a certain personality type where we get this information and we have to know.
It's man. Man needs to fix a problem. This is why like the guy can't sit at table and be comfortable while he's thinking about this problem. Then the guys get together and they spit out how they can't fix this problem, and if they all can't fix it together, they actually feel better about it.
Okay.
But they have to be able to vocalize that there is this discontrolling factor in their life. It's going to take away their control of their life, and that they want to have a plan for it. Okay. And if that plan is just that me and my neighbor know it's going to be really bad and we got each other's backs, like they're like, well, that's better than just like having to stew on it. Because again, when you're stewing on the man, we don't get the full spectrum, like big picture view of emotions and thoughts all meshed together, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, it's just the aliens are coming. The aliens are coming. The aliens are coming, right? And until you have like, what will I do as an answer that makes you feel, oh, the aliens are coming. Well, at least I can die well. Like you have to have something worked out, and then other men sharing that, without kind of judgment, but more just kind of like, then that's a really key part of guy processing, I think. I don't think you always have to do it out loud per se, and writing has a gift for being able to help people with this, but fixing the problem. And that gets to a lot of the other men stuff we've looked at before, right? Fixers. And then focused on how, right? So if you come and you say, this happened at work, we're going to say, well, you should have done this, right? Because we're trying to fix the problem, as opposed to, oh, that hurts and you need a hug. Right? That's how a woman would hopefully hear that. So guys, you can learn, but
that women want to be heard and hugged rather than have the problem.
you're not bringing us problems to fix them unless you ask for it to be fixed. You're bringing us problems for sympathy, empathy. There's another puffy word that we could use. Sympathy, empathy, not apathy. We don't want that
No.
at all. Yeah. I'm going to keep us going because there's more.
Yeah, go for it. We have a lot today.
But no, this does tie to, I want to say both of these things. These I think are important. And well, yeah. So in a game of stealing governments, like if you're at a game where you're a government or aren't a government but have the power of a government and want a government, I don't know, Ecuador or the USA, they're all up for grabs. You want to take over a government. In the game of stealing governments, fear and distraction are the key. You must keep the populace afraid and distracted and happy with what they've got, right? Telling themselves, "Oh, thank goodness it's this good. It could be so much worse." Right?
Yeah.
You want them to stay in that kind of mode. Oh, I'm safe for a moment. Let me have a beer. Right? That's kind of where they want to keep you. If our own deep state has been compromised against us for 2 generations as a people, it's already over. Like if they're doing that for another government, yeah, it's really already over. If they're doing it for themselves, then whatever the other governments are doing that's causing them so much stress right now, maybe they'll get beat, and that'd be good for us at home, even though, like, on the other side of the planet, our oil reserves, our ability to control prices or whatever may change. I don't know. But if any government that is against its own people is going to fall.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I got to say. Like, it's going to fall. It's not like we have to rise up. No. If our own government has decided that its purpose is to destroy its own people, well, then it will destroy itself.
Yeah. So
kind of get out of the way of the statue as it collapses a little bit, right? More than shoot bullets at the statue. That's not going to work. And then if the pagans around us are worshiping demons, which they always are, we're surrounded on every side. Like a man caught in a hornet's nest. We're surrounded. In ancient Israel, an Israelite family or town surrounded by Philistine families or towns would learn to know that it's only a matter of time until violence comes their way. So we're surrounded by pagans who are worshiping demons. They can have peace with each other. They can't have peace with Christianity. So just, be ready for where we are. Where, how's it say it in Revelations? Where Satan has his throne? Yeah, that's right. Jezebel, holding to the teachings of the Nicolaitans and all that stuff. So that's the extra I got there on Brief History of Power, episode 140. You check that one out for sure if you haven't. Yeah, good one to get into the show for the first time. And yeah, don't. I hate. Here, that's what this tweet's for. I tweeted this. And it didn't get a lot of love. I've had some good love on tweets recently, but I think this one's pretty important. It's right at the question a little bit. If you live in a world where people say they only believe what they see, then believe what you see them do and not what they say they're doing. So the same one's like, I won't believe in God. I only believe what I see. Aliens. No. Like, since the person telling you this story lives in the world of I only believe what I see, well, then demand that of them. Like, I'm only going to believe what you show me then of your religion that you propose. And this applies on all sorts of levels. Don't watch what they say. Watch what they do. The liar, by definition, is distracting you with his mouth. What he's doing. So why are you watching his mouth? What good's that when his pickpockets around you in the corner? So, in the corner, pickpockets.
Checking for them.
Yeah, I think maybe that's part of the next question, and I may have had that out of order. We definitely have 2 more questions, and they are long, but they're good. Mrs. Fisk, a Catholic friend of mine, and I were discussing the horror genre of entertainment, specifically video games. he thinks it is within Christian freedom to play, enjoy, and as he emphasizes, learn from horror games. Now, I'm just going to pause for half a second here and just realize that we are now in a question about defending psychological horror.
Yeah.
Now just take that out of context and just think about that. We live in a world where we're going to be in a question where Christians are debating, no, psychological horror is good for us. Like, I mean, I don't know. That seems like really obvious folly to me. Like just the phrase, the words that he's using, like without getting into any Bible verses or anything. He's like, wow, dude, like, you think being traumatized is going to help you? You're a hurting person, I think, is where that is. And you're hiding from your pain and like lacerating yourself more. Deep sorrow.
Is that called salvation myth?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a salvation myth function. But you'd see that more in his personal relationships, probably. He thinks that simulating an exhilarating and adrenalizing scenario can improve the ability to act in a stressful situation and is to him very enjoyable. No, I just gotta that's the best one, right? So I play Call of Duty so that when like the Chinese attack, I'm be ready to like fight back, bro. Like I log like 8 hours a day, and I'm a crack shot. Like there's this kid been fighting from China and stuff. I kill him every time he hates it. He says you jerk, and it's funny. So I'm like getting smarter while I play video games and stuff, and I'm be good.
Goodness.
I'm be good at shooting things someday, right? Like I'm sure he said it better than that, but no, really, that's what he said. That's what he said. Like, you're not going to get better at shooting with a gun by playing video games with a gun. You can maybe pilot a drone, okay? Yeah. You want to pilot a drone? Play some video games. They'll help you pilot drones. But to be prepared for adrenalized situations, I'm sorry. Go take a karate class, man. Play some basketball. I don't know. That's adrenaline. You need real adrenaline, not this falsified blue light stun you into... You want to know what's going to happen to this guy when something real happens? He's going to freeze. That's what he's really practiced doing, is freezing. Why can I only move my thumbs? There's people shooting, right? Like you train your body, your muscles with what you do, not with what you watch. You can watch football your whole life. It's not going to make you good at it. It's not how it works. So just dispel the myth as you don't need a Bible verse for this poor man, and you probably aren't going to convince this poor man. You need to pray and pity for this poor man. Who honestly believes he's going to get smarter and more talented simulating it in a 3D environment that's guaranteed for him to succeed in. Like, you can't lose, really. Not in most of these games. So, like, what a sad awakening he's going to have the day he has to put this theory to the test. So just that alone, I don't mean to be a jerk or nothing, but it's still like this isn't even like biblical knowledge. This is just study the medium a little bit. He thinks that if print media can depict gruesome and psychologically troubling stories, that it shouldn't be any different from audiovisual media. Notice how he shifted categories in the topic there. You know, there's a very different way of thinking about it. So we went from talking about the medium and what it does to talking about the content on the medium. Okay, sorry, dude. My whole argument is against the medium to begin with. So you can be like, well, print media has bad stuff printed in it too, so I can watch bad stuff.
Oh, wait,
like,
there's a
do you see that
fallacy.
argument? There's more than a fallacy.
What
is
that called?
Mott and Bailey.
Mott and Bailey.
Yeah, Mott and Bailey.
That
You're right.
is an example of a Mott and Bailey.
So, but like, hear the logic. Well, books have bad things in them.
I know.
So I can watch bad things in movies for fun and get smarter and stronger while I do it.
So when you turn 10, you go from the grammar phase of your brain development to the logic phase of the brain development. And this friend
missed that phase.
Is stuck in it, and we're clumsy.
I'm sorry for being rude. It just blows my mind, the childishness of this. What was it? I said to the kids the other day, we were talking about, I was able to use Minecraft as a learning point for them.
Okay. And
explain how, like, in Minecraft, if I want to build a cathedral, I just start throwing rock on top of itself. There's my cathedral, right? And I do that in like an hour. And so, like, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. But like real life, it doesn't work that way at all.
No.
And so every game you're playing as a simulation is just cutting so much reality out that all you're doing is feeding your adrenal gland. So you're like, I'm addicted to adrenaline, and the only place I can get it is from this idol that requires I give it my brain and soul for hours daily, posturing my body so as to become unhealthy over time and providing no value to anyone else in the world except for my overlord who controls me by me buying the next one.
Oh, it's so sad.
It is. It is so sad. And that's the medium. Now, you want to talk about what's on it. Okay. Should Christians read psychological horror? I think that's a fair question. And I'm going to suggest not if it's not written by a Christian. Like, so That Hideous Strength, third book in C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, mentioned in the side comments as something for you interested in aliens. Go read the Space Trilogy. It's pretty good. The third one takes place on planet Earth, though, and is a psychological horror thriller dealing with the cosmic power that's ultimately demonic and self-destructs at God's command. And it's really well written. It definitely plays with dark things, but from a thoroughly biblical way of engaging them. I think that's probably a little bit different than reading like Interview with a Vampire, or one of these, pagan written semi-erotica conspiracy. I mean, whatever you want to throw into it, it's by a pagan. It ought to be read with a certain measure of like arm's lengthness to it. Is it Emerson's poetry? Well, indeed, still arm's length. Arm's length. He's wrong. He's a liar. He's destroyed consciences and souls. He's led to false religions, right? And he's just one, right? Many of the American writers, British writers too. The worldview of the writer is going to matter a lot. So genre is kind of not really as important as what the person who's writing it believes. If it's not history, it's a dream. And if it's a dream, what spirit is dreaming? And why would you want to let a spirit who's dreaming godless things tell you how to dream? It doesn't make sense to me why I would let that spirit in my soul.
Yeah.
It'll make me better at fighting when we have to grow potatoes. I mean, like, it's just as... It's so out there and childish and terrifying that people think like this. Again, so I'm just talking. He uses his argument about, print media shouldn't be any different. Spoken like a true idiot. Print media is different, and then from there we talk about content. Of course, print media is different than video media. I mean, you just. Why do you think kids watch movies and don't read books? It's because it's different. It's just so obvious. Duh. But we're so blind. We're so Gnostic. We only believe in the stories we tell and the symbols we create in our heads, and then the real ones that are right in front of us, we ignore those. So he did not defend gore in entertainment, was primarily defending psychological horror, though he doesn't think gore in moderation is particularly bad. So we can also just, that's a side comment here again, to talk about gore. Meaning like, blood spatter or all this kind of stuff. And, I've never liked gore. I've played some games and put up with the gore for the sake of playing the game. You could make the argument that if you're going to do a simulation, you want it to be as realistic as possible. I mean, ideally, you go into Call of Duty and you play it once, you never want to play again because you're so traumatized by the evils of war. That'd be a simulation. Gore is supposed to be part of that, but it tends to be just kind of gratuitous, especially in the horror genre. There's whole edges of it that is really about how cut up and gross and disgusting everything gets. And all I got on that is like, you're just a very strange person if gore is the thing that gets you going. And as a Christian, you probably want to repent of that. Without condemning yourself, be like, wow, my flesh has got some messed up right there. Jesus, don't let that ever turn wicked. That's gross is what that'll turn into. And here's why, especially if you're dealing with humans. Don't you love them? I know he's just an actor and they faked it, his face blowing off, but you saw what it would have looked like, and you want to watch that again? You won't let your kids watch it, but you'll watch it. What are you getting out of this? oh, I got to hear a story about this, that, and it was his friend and all this, that. Okay. But still, right. Like, why are you don't respect the image of God nearly enough, is my answer to that. The every man is the image of God. And if you are going to be entertained by his being tortured into dredges or whatever, like, some gore is okay. Yeah, look at you drawing lines. Tithe, cement, and cumin while you're at it. It's more about, like, dude, what is your soul eating right now? Yeah, my thoughts are, he says, largely derived from your work, so I will not repeat them, but I did mention Philippians 4:8, Psalm 119:37, and Romans 12:2. Among the thoughts, like, whose kingdom are you serving with entertainment, which that's a good thought, right? And why do you want to simulate demonic nightmares? Amen. Good thought. He ultimately thinks that if it is not against the Ten Commandments or the Catholic Catechism, that it can't be anything more than a venial sin, and he isn't worried about that. I love it. Venial sin. So we are dealing with a Roman Catholic who knows enough to know that Roman Catholics have made it possible for you to sin all you want as long as you don't do really bad public sins and continue giving money to the Catholic Church. Put those two things together and you're okay. And they do this through the sleight of hand, the sophistry that's called mortal and venial sin, which is based on a truth, which is that a Christian can sin and not fall away. Like, you do it every day. It happens all the time, really. You live in sin, but you can't live in it anymore, Paul says. But here it is all the time. And those are venial sins, right? But certain sins are worse than others because they do more damage to others or to your soul. Like, if I just spitefully dislike my neighbor, it's a little different than if I hack him to pieces and eat him, right? Like, now I've really done a mortal sin. I've done something that's going to be on my own soul in such a way that I may not be able to believe anymore. Like, when I go back to my baptism, I'm kind of like, yeah, but I killed that guy yesterday in a fit of rage. How can I believe Jesus is in me? And you're going to ask that question. It's going to destroy your faith. So it is possible to fall away through doing great evil things, and those would be sins that are mortal to your faith. They kill your faith. But here's the thing, is like so the sin where you're like, that's a sin, and you're like, yeah, but it's venial. Guess what? You just committed mortal sin, man. You don't even know it. Like, it's the first of mortal sin. It's the hardening process that can lead to mortal sin. By claiming the venial sin isn't sin, really. The point of venial sin is to recognize that there are distinctions in how much I hurt other people, not to make hurting other people sometimes okay. Golly, rewind that one. Hear it again. So here he is saying it's a venial sin to watch the image of God destroyed on screen because it psychologically thrills me into the adrenaline, which will prepare me for Tiawaki after the world ends as we know it, and whatever comes next and the zombies are here, I'll be more prepared. And so this is all okay now, right? Methinks he doth protest too much, right? Of course, you have to defend your idol. So
can I
yes, you may
say Proverbs 29 verse 1 speaks to this hardening that you mentioned. It says, he who is often rebuked and hardens his neck will suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy.
That's a pretty rough one right there, man. Good. So this idea that, like, it's got to be a direct breaking of an outward, most public Ten Commandment framework is a way of just saying that wisdom is stupid and I don't need it. All I need is to follow the rules and obey the Pope, right? Which is what we are generally accusing Rome of doing, is creating licentious Christians, culturally attached to a visible church, but often completely faithless because of the Babylonian captivity of truth that has been suppressed in the name of the financing of the papacy and his kingdom of child molestation, perhaps, these days. Wouldn't you maybe wonder, if you like conspiracy theories, why not that one? Seems to make a whole lot of sense of a number of things. But in any case, going back to it, he says he thinks that if we live a life striving towards sanctification, that we shouldn't give up the horror genre just because, but we must go all the way and be a monk, and if we don't, we are hypocrites, right? So you either are going to strive, if you're going to try to be a good person, you have to be a monk.
I think that's
otherwise
so
you're a
funny.
hypocrite.
Isn't
and so
there
now he actually
another fallacy?
He jumped from it's a venial sin to it's okay to it's my duty to commit more venial sins than the monks do. Like, I have to do this. To be really good, I have to commit venial sins. Like, this guy is so backwards and confused. He's arguing like an infant with a crayon, right? The lines aren't even lines. They're just all over the place. Be a monk. And if we don't, then we're hypocrites. So trying to do good makes you a hypocrite, he said. And since not all of us are called to be monks, because that's the only people who do good, to give up all and follow Christ. Actually, we all are called to do that. Actually, we are. I mean, that isn't see, it's not about monasticism. It's not about joining a monastery. The fact that they tell you that to follow Christ means join a monastery, talk about a horrible religion. We don't have to give up all things if they aren't related to mortal sins, basically. So, right, only the mortal sins, right? So drink gasoline. It's not a mortal sin. It's okay. Go drink some. It tastes good. Don't YouTube. It's satire. He set up the dichotomy between a saint and a normal Christian. I believe this is related to Catholic doctrine. Yes, it is. And since he thinks since he isn't a saint, he doesn't need to try to purge all temptations and become an ascetic. Well, I don't know that you need to become an ascetic either. I do think that when you know evil is right in front of you, you will do good to walk away from it. It's just so funny that, like, the simplicity of what I'm advocating versus what he's trying to defend. Could you please speak to, is there a place for horror in a Christian's life? I think I said so, yes, but it would not be movies usually, I think, because the medium has problems. And then even just to love horror for its own sake is an issue. But if you're going to read about Jezebel's life, there's going to be some cosmic horror involved in this. So, like, the Bible is a... Dude, this is I love this. So cosmic horror posits that the whole universe is moving toward an end, being run by a single mind that most people can't see and don't know it's happening, but certain people are able to see it, but they can't stop it. And the end of the book is it happens. It's always an evil God, however, that's doing this. But see, Christianity is cosmic horror with a good God. It's kind of awesome, actually, right? So the Bible is cosmic horror if you want to go that route. But in terms of the genre, do we need a genre of... What a waste of life if you're in a genre of horror.
Well, there is a concept that, and the only reason I bring this up is because so many of us are experiencing this now because of our, potentially our heritage and then also our dietary choices, but we have dementia and Alzheimer's in our future.
Oh, you're going there. Yeah, this is down here in my notes. Yep, good.
Oh, okay.
You're good. Yeah, it's good.
But
what will you dream later is my note. What will you dream later in life?
You soak in now is what will be the thoughts then. And so we actually had a personal experience with a pastor who was walking somebody through the end of her life, and she had dementia, and she was not a horror. What is this called?
Horror. Cosmic horror.
Cosmic
or
horror. Psychological horror fan. She was a murder mystery fan, and battled as her dementia came on stronger. This concept, she had to be removed from her home because she could not get it out of her head that her husband was going to kill her and take her children. Yeah. Her children didn't live at home, and her husband was her caretaker. Like, there was no reason other than the fact that her brain was full
of reality she built was that normal is murder mysteries.
Yeah.
And so you want to build a framework of reality in which normal is cosmic horror with evil winning. Or maybe only a few people escape. Why are you doing that to your soul? You don't think it's impacting your soul. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why. You don't think it is. Or it doesn't matter that much. It kind of is, but it isn't really. But no, you don't think it is. And this is my point, right? It is. And even you go, it doesn't matter that much. It says you haven't thought through it. You haven't thought it through. You're just eating it. So anyone who's used these things and never, like, taken the time to break for a while, I don't know, Lent's a good time to practice if you're gonna. I just don't. It's like, the heroin addict's gonna tell you they're fine. They're gonna. There are things you can be addicted to, like coffee, that it's not good for you. It's not bad for you, right? So, but knowing it, like, don't pretend you're not. you know.
And you've also talked to us about idolatry, and how the first sign that somebody has an idol is when you speak to them about removing it or giving it up.
Right.
There's a defensiveness that you really can't break through. And this man or woman, I guess I don't know who Olive's friend is, but is definitely demonstrating that defensiveness and the way that he's arguing, oh, well, then I must have to be a monk or I'm a hypocrite. Like, dude, let go of your idol.
Yeah, he's grasping. He's grasping hard for it. And yeah, so like, it's one thing to use these tools with the acknowledgement that they are damaging to us, that they manipulate us, that we are capable of being addicted to them, even with the best of intentions, and then use the tool versus to use the tool and not admit any of that. And that's where my problem is not. I'm not like saying like you have to use the tools the way I do. I'm just saying like you got to know what they really are for. And this guy is busy saying that the things that are in fact, blaspheming the image of God and teaching me to see the world in a way that is not true, these are really good for me. And again, he's believed this is going to make him a man somehow. So the idolatry is deep here, and yet to use the word idolatry would never convince him. He's not going to believe for a second that his household god is a black screen, that he gets to tell him what he wants. But that is the way it is, right? I believe at this point in life that household gods are fairly easy to spot. Right, so you read the Old Testament stories about household gods, and everyone's like, "What are those? What are those?" Well, everyone had household gods. Really? How weird? Oh, I don't think it's so how weird. I think they're all over if you just look for them. And there is redemption. There is Christianity can really do quite a wonder with our proclivity for surrounding ourselves with images to worship. When you worship Jesus, everything's redeemed, but not everybody's redeemed. There's a lot of idols. There's a lot of idols, and they really are statuary or pictures. And you just look at it and realize, look at the worship space they set up in this house. Whoa, it really is something. And I find that helpful then, again, for engaging the tool kind of realistically. Like I still am. There's a screen right there, But like, I need my friend. I'm not going to go to it for comfort, much less to enhance myself for the great day of challenge. No. It's just so bizarre. But it's also, this is key. So a lot of his argument came down to what we would call as Lutherans Christian freedom. That because he's a Christian, he has the freedom to not be perfect, which is really true and very important and valuable. Christian freedom is a freedom to believe your value in God's sight comes from what you do. And so when you find that you aren't everything that's good that you try to be, you are free to know God loves you and just keep going. It is not the freedom to say, I don't need to try. I don't want to try. Not trying is better than trying. That's where they've gone. And really, what it's finally coming down to is the argument that Christian freedom is the right to drunkenness.
Yeah.
That's what he's advocating. His whole argument is, I can be drunk. It's okay. That's his whole argument. And so again, drunkenness not meaning alcohol per se, but anything that's stealing your capacity to see evil for what it is. I mean, I would call that drunk, right? When you are inebriated with alcohol, you are unable to focus on everything that's going on, and you are less likely to be aware of things you're not looking for. That's why driving's so dangerous with alcohol. Your reaction time to everything is slowed. So if an enemy came at you from the side and you've had 5 beers, you're going to get hit. Whereas if you had not had 5 beers, you might be able to dodge that thing. And so here it is again. This is like not I can use movies. It's I can be drunk. It's okay. That's really what he's arguing. I can be drunk. I can drink all this stuff. I can change my body chemistry. I can change my the story in my mind. I can do it all with pagan dreams and machines that we know move generations over time. I can do it all against God's word, but it's only a little bit against God's word, so it's good. That's his argument. It is so wicked as to be either he's just a complete fool, an idiot with a little bit of faith, or I don't want to judge the guy. I don't know. Jesus will be the judge, but like the proverb said, quickly without without salvation. Like the collapse comes hard and fast. So
Yeah, he can do this, but he's going to have the consequences upon his own head.
if his faith is really there, then his faith is going to be vexed through the process of what he's advocated, and he will either repent or not. But the hardening has begun, right? And really, it's begun generations ago when we adopted these machines wholesale without thinking about the ramifications of it. And I can go back to even the radio. That as Christians, we just pulled them into our homes and assumed the good of it all, and that's the error. It's not that they're all evil either, but can you really fellowship with darkness and not have shadows cast upon your light? No, is the answer to that. Psychological horror. I think that's the end of that one. We got one more. It's long. There's a lot of Bible verses he brought up. And so, these are ones that I've used before. The Philippians 4:1, whatever is true, whatever is noble, think on these things, meditate on these things, right? And then Psalm 119:37. I just love to pray this: turn away my eyes from looking at worthless things and revive me in your way. When I started praying that, I was using all of these machines for entertainment, and over time, just that verse alone was like, well, I keep asking him to turn my eyes away, and I keep turning them back to worthless things. Maybe I should like if I want him to help, maybe I should stop trying to do what I want instead and do what he turn away my eyes from the worthless things. And the language is just so plain. Why am I looking at this worthless thing? What am I doing? Like, if I have to help my neighbor for a moment, sure, but why would I do that for fun? Fun? Where did it say have fun? It doesn't say that. It says turn away my eyes from looking at worthless things, right? So it's right there, and he quoted Romans 12, which is great. Like, I highlighted the whole thing. It's so good. Brethren, by the mercies of God, present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable, your reasonable service. It doesn't need to go further than that. Like that's it. He doesn't like that. He doesn't think that applies to this moment, which fine, philosophical argument, right? So I don't think that dreaming pagan dreams and giving them the key to the adrenal gland of my spirit for 2 hours while I largely turn off my forward thinking mechanisms, I don't believe that's going to be a jeopardy to me. I'm going to go do it. Okay, well then fine. I consider it a reasonable service to protect my mind from that. So we would read this verse very differently, I guess, at that point. Don't be conformed by the world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Prove what is good. Grace is given to me. Don't think too more highly of yourself than you ought. Think soberly. Right? Having different gifts. There's just so much here. Abhor what is evil. Cling to what is good. Romans 12. So we got one more question and plenty of time, including our downlight came by today. Thank you for your joy. I pray it made your day. Really, like, if it's going to build you up, it's good. I'll take it. Do you have more to say, or can we go to this last one?
No, I think we should go on.
Because we got 11:40 here almost. So it's a long one.
Is this one that I can slip out at for just a minute, or should I hear the question first?
No, you can slip out, I guess, on this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's leave you off screen for them. Oh, well, now you're on my screen.
I'll be on both screens for a minute.
Both screens. Greetings in Christ, Pastor. I downloaded the book on exorcism you discussed in the previous video, The House Swept Clean by Daryl McCulley. I believe that was in the Mad Mondays links as well this week, and I do recommend it as a good summary resource for demonology if you're looking for one from a Lutheran perspective, particularly. Although, as we're going to see here, I maybe should say, I don't agree with everything he ever said in the book, and he does get something really wrong, which you're on to here. I have been reading and smart noting. Good for you. I have gotten about halfway through. It is an interesting work, to say the least. Yes, it is. I was wondering if you could perhaps shed some light on something I don't quite understand. Early on, while discussing the causes of illness, Macaulay writes that there are 3 causes of illness: our own frailty due to the fall, God due to an intervention, and Satan due to an intervention, both of those being miraculous causes, as a modern man would see it. He says that the human body does not work as it should since the fall and breaks down. Satan can also do false miracles and even may be able to give temporary healing or relief to someone he has afflicted. I'm with all of that so far. If it suits his purposes. We must recognize, Macaulay says, that God sometimes causes our illness. We must also Remember that when God causes or allows us to be ill, it is for our ultimate benefit. God may choose to humble us through illness to bring us to repentance. Moreover, Satan cannot heal what God has caused, right? So if God's causing your illness and you go to a witch doctor, he can't fix it. Yep, I'm with all of that so far too. He still hasn't gotten to the point where the question's really going to be, and where the error that I think Macaulay has is. All of this makes sense to me. Yep, so I'm with you. On page 45, however, the author seems to be saying something different. Yep, he does. He's going to make an error. Macaulay asserts here that Satan is the, let's emphasize this point he makes, only bringer of death, right? So listener, not reading the story anymore here for a moment. The teaching is, in Macaulay's book, that God does not author death ever at all, ever. The only one who kills is the devil. Only, ever. And that's really wrong. And so the question is going to be about that, and then walking through some verses that support that, and then I'll try to kind of comment as we go. But just, heads up, no, God's the one who kills people. It's pretty straightforward in the Bible. The devil is how he does it, probably, but God's the one who is in charge of Satan. Satan's not off any leashes. He's on a leash. On page 45, however, Macaulay asserts here that Satan is the bringer of death. He says that God does not kill people. Satan does. Macaulay says that it is irresponsible for pastors to tell people that God took their loved ones for God's own purposes when consoling loved ones of someone who Jesus has died. So he's really off on a personal need at that point in the book. You kind of feel his emotion in those pages that are there around this section, and he's just straight up wrong. Quite the opposite. Every pastor should indeed tell the Christians that God took their loved ones home to rest away from this veil of tears, and that this was a reward for them in their faith. Their baptism has stood and made them whole. This is biblical. This is Lutheran. He's just wrong. He's got some weird, pious, probably 1980s Missouri Synod soft-handedness coming through here, and he's very zealous about it. So I couldn't really disagree more, though, and biblically, and you'll see that because you wrote the questions. You gave me the answers I'm going to use, which I agree with, right? He says again, that God in Jesus reverses only the work of the devil. It is the devil's work to kill and destroy. On the contrary, God is the God of life, who in the person and work of Jesus on the cross defeated death. So he missed the class in Luther on alien work versus proper work is maybe one way you could go here. If you want to dig on that, just Google that. You can find more on that. It's in his Isaiah commentary, I think. Jesus defeated death and the devil is, you say, certainly true. Yep. My question is, how should I reconcile these two ideas? One, that God allows us to become ill sometimes for his purposes and for our benefit. But two, God doesn't kill people, Satan does. Well, no, you don't reconcile that. Two is wrong. That's how. Two is wrong. Because Satan is the bringer of death, God the bringer of life. You go on and you're going to make the right point that I have always understood Satan was the bringer of death into this world through Satan's successful temptation of Adam and Eve, not that he is necessarily personally directly responsible for every individual death. Well, even if he is, it's still God's. Satan doesn't do anything God doesn't say you can do. He gives allowances. Read Job. He gives allowances. But even if he's not, Scripture also does seem to say that God causes people to die. That's right. The silver cord snipped. Who does that? Jesus does. Deuteronomy 32:39 says, "See now that I myself, I am he. There is no God beside me. I put to death and bring to life. I have wounded, I will heal. No one can deliver out of my hand." There's other passages, 1 Samuel 2, 2 Kings 5, Job 5. Moreover, is it possible that God was causing the members of the Corinthian congregation to die because they were guilty of sinning against the body and blood of the Lord by their unworthy reception of the Lord's Supper? Yes. Away from, perhaps to ultimately keep them from falling away from the faith entirely. Yes, that's possible. Is it the only explanation? No. It's a pretty good one, though, I think. Or did Satan cause them to die? Right? You say, well, don't assume Satan wasn't involved in the death, right? Like, he's the bringer of it. Death and the dragon are the last enemies to be cast into the fire. Are they the same angel or not? I'm not sure we're supposed to worry about that. But what we are to know here is that none of the angelic powers exist without God creating them. Evil, God didn't create, but angelic power, he did. And death is the end of evil. So like it's there to put an end to evil. So God does that, not the devil. Like the idea that the devil's the author of death gives the devil so much credit, so much power that he doesn't have by created order, that he's stolen. It's the lie. It's the very lie itself that he's powerful as God is. So I think you're right, or onto something there with 1 Corinthians. You go on to say, it doesn't make sense that God would cause illness to discipline but not death. You're right, it doesn't. It's also illogical, what he says. Perhaps I'm reading this a little too wittily. Nope, you're right. I think I get the spirit of what Macaulay is saying. However, I cannot translate it into my own words yet. Any insight you could have would be much appreciated. Ready to take notes on my 4x5 card. I don't know where you get 4x5 cards. That sounds like a weird size. I like 4x6 a lot. 4x5 seems like it'd be really weird. So, all right. You pointed to Deuteronomy 32:39 first, and that is a good place to go. Right, so if the question is who kills who, where did death come from? What is death? Genesis, death is what God says will happen to man the day he disobeys God. And from there, I think the biblical idea is that death is God's punishment on man. Now, how he enacts that punishment might indeed be through angels who won't be with us in paradise. I'm pretty sure he makes use of unclean spirits with some regularity. He sent one on Saul. He sent one on Paul of Tarsus. I mean, it's like, so God's in charge of all of that. But who is the one that has the authority to end a life? No one has that authority except for God. Only God may end a life. This is why to be like unaware that a death that happened that's a tragedy is indeed God's will is a great weakness. It's a great weakness, a great fear. It's to give the devil way more credit than he did. Why didn't God stop him? Oh, well, the devil did it. Yeah, well, then not much of a God, I'm afraid, right? As opposed to the God who has given us an understanding of what this world is, and that to be taken away in the midst of our years is in fact a great blessing. Especially if you just believe that since it happened to you, it has to be a great blessing. Right? Others are given longer lives, and that was a great blessing to them. That's the way to walk in this valley, right? So you also, you quoted 1 Samuel 2, which is going to be the same idea. It's in Hannah's prayer. Jesus Christ kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and he brings up. It's the confession of the resurrection. He has the power of life and death, right? Jesus holds the keys to death and Hades. It's like in his hands. That's Revelation. I kind of like here, though, if you really want to get into this, let's stop with well, God says I kill and make alive stuff. And let's just look at what God did in 2 Chronicles. Is that where we went to? I'm sorry, 2 Kings 19. This is also in Isaiah because this is the whole section where Sennacherib's Rabshakeh comes to Hezekiah. You were talking about it earlier, right? And they set up the claim that they're gonna knock down Jerusalem, and then he blasphemes while Hezekiah is praying for help. He blasphemes, not Hezekiah, but the Rabshakeh blasphemes God. And that night, here's what happened. Verse 35. And it came to pass on a certain night that the angel of the Lord, that'd be Jesus in every way, shape, or form. The angel of the Lord went out and killed in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. And when the people arose early in the morning, there were the corpses all dead. Now, it doesn't say it sent Satan to do it for him. Doesn't say it. It doesn't say it. It says angel of Yahweh, the burning bush guy. Jesus. So, look, Macaulay's just wrong. He's got a really nice, pious desire to help grieving people find hope, and someone hurt him probably, or someone he loves, with the doctrine of death. His grief was not comforted, and so he found comfort in blaming the devil. Problem is, though, then insisting that everyone else has to blame the devil too insists on a truth that isn't true. Meanwhile, the rest of his book about, all the research he's done into all the other exorcists and their demonology and how he summarized all of that for a Lutheran point of view to just start the conversation, I still recommend it as an excellent resource. But yeah, this caveat sits high in my hand now that you pointed out. I remember when I read it thinking this, didn't think it was that big a part of the book really, but being like, dude, slow down. Stop yelling at everybody. Like that's just the style of writing on the page. Like you're way too emotional about this idea. And then it's not right, ultimately. So that's really what that question was about, not so much the rest of the demonology and so forth in the book, which is all good actually for me today. I don't know if I want to go further on that. I'm getting up on time for I'm going to need my break, but we'll stop, I think, for that. Did you have a good break? Welcome back.
I did.
What do you want to talk about? We got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
About something I ran across today as I was reading in... Oh, dear. Now I have to find it. Oh, maybe we already talked about it. I think it was the one in Proverbs 27 where he who blesses his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it will be counted a curse to him. But I felt like there was another one that I wanted you to explain to me.
Well, why don't you look for it, and I'll tell the story that don't do that, shared in the comments.
Okay.
Of her late uncle, who was an Army vet, but was out of the Army before Vietnam, and then watched many Vietnam War movies in his late life, and then when he was in the nursing home would tell the nurses he served in Vietnam, but he'd never actually been to Vietnam. You can watch our president doing these kinds of things these days, actually. He tells all sorts of stories that are in news clips from, alt-right media at least. Maybe it's all faked, I don't know. But he's regularly telling stories about things that didn't happen, and with a straight face, like an old man at the dinner table, like he's just having a good time, and he really is misremembering things. So this does happen. And what did you plant that you thought it was a movie and you thought you lived it, and you didn't realize that you felt like you lived it? You always feel like you lived it. And now later, your brain is so weak you can't remember you didn't live it, because brains do that later in life. What are you putting there to find later when you have no defenses? That's a very real question. That's not me being like pharisaical about my TV versus your TV or something like that. No, this is just what I'd rather have less of now that I've found that, wow, my dreams are already bad enough. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, I want to call out Easy World here, who says, I brought the wrong one. Oh, your comment was from way earlier. I want to give you the credit for it. Where'd you go? Oh, there we go. Last week I was eating pizza and junk food while we discussed carnivore. Sunday morning I decided to try it for 3 weeks. For the week I ate only beef, shrimp, cheese, eggs, and nuts. I weighed myself multiple times this morning because the scale said I dropped 9.4 pounds in a week. So the first 2 months, if you do it hard and you've got like that big man belly fat, you can drop weight fast. You might want to kind of watch that a little bit. Make sure you're eating to satiation, especially. Get it. If you're hungry, eat more steak right now. Eat more burger right now. Just pummel yourself with that. You don't really need to worry about the fat because you're losing the fat. But as your body's eating that fat, give it something to rebuild everything else with. Because you want to start, really developing bone and muscle structure that is there and it's hanging together because the pizza kind of worked like dough does, sticky and all, but like it isn't your muscles. And now you're going to eat muscle, right? So your body's going to be like, wow, muscle? What do we can build muscle with this. 9.4 pounds in a week though. Yeah. Stick with it.
Great.
Stick with it. Shrimp. Threw the shrimp in for the flavor fest. And that was, we have a couple of super chats from way back here too, but they're actually really good theological questions. So they're deeper.
Okay.
Did you find what you were?
I didn't. It must have been that one that we already talked about. So.
All right. Well, let's see here. We have, thank you, Lapse Judgment, for, man, I threw that way up there where I can't even grab it. There it is. For these super chat questions, what do you do when you can't decide what you want? That's a good one. Is there a Lutheran alternative to theonomy? That's fascinating. I'd have to refresh that one. And when Lutherans say unlimited atonement, is it still limited to humankind? It doesn't extend to the fallen spiritual beings under your view. Oh, I can answer that one real quick. So I would suggest to you that he died for the sins of the world. Now, I'm not sure that the mice commit sin, nor do they have persons, therefore maybe not souls to be saved, but like he died for the sins of the world. And so the whole world's redeemed. The whole world's redeemed. The world in the Bible means heaven and earth. And I don't know. I'd love to have a conversation with some other good theologians about this, but I think that if Jesus doesn't like save the universe, the good angels aren't exactly like in a good spot. Like they're kind of stuck with man a little bit. The good angels too, right? So does that mean that the atonement atoned for the angels by blood? No, I don't think so at all. I think that a new man is the new head of creation, and everything just goes with him because that's the way it goes. And man especially, then. Mankind himself especially. So, do I think that the unlimited atonement of Jesus Christ, that is that he died for all the world, includes then, therefore, he died for all mankind. Every man, woman, child has been bought by him, has been paid for. Yes, I believe that, and I believe that that then impacts and is the salvation of the universe. I do not personally believe that means that the demons will be restored. I believe the demons will refuse to be restored. They will, like many people who will follow them, they will not want this redemption. They will prefer hatred, malice, self-destruction, loneliness, all those things, because they seem easier at first, even though they're dark and wicked places to end up being. So yeah, I don't think the devil's going to get redeemed, like Origen supposedly thought. What do you do when you can't decide what you want to do, Meridith? What do you do when you cannot decide what to do?
What do you do when you can't decide what you want to do?
Yup.
Like, I have two options and I have to decide.
Yeah. I don't know. Or you have no options. I don't know. The question is, what do you do when you can't decide what you want? I decide that at that point, I don't want it much then.
Yeah, usually, I mean, it's usually not a matter of not which one.
It's a cool
Can't
question.
decide what I want.
Yeah.
It's more oftentimes I have to choose one and I want two.
I've had the experience where I'm just not sure what I want out of life.
Okay.
Like I'm trying to figure out, Jonathan, what is it you really want here? Like you're all torn up over this. What do you really want?
Okay.
So that's kind of how I heard it. And that's where, like, I think to realize if I don't want it, obviously I don't want it. And so whatever other reasons I've got for saying I want it, I should reassess those things. So it's easy to like have an idea, a dream, and be like, oh, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want a goat. And then you buy the goat. Man, I think it smells. It's kind of mean. I don't like goats, right? Well, now I don't want it, right? So, like, how do I decide what I want? If I have any inclination that it's just a pipe dream,
Mm-hmm.
I try to challenge it with as much discernment as possible and make it real on paper so that I can see I don't want it. I don't want to be president of anything.
Yeah.
Why? Because I know what the day would be like every day. Do I want the results of what I think I could do? Yeah, of course I want those results because I think I'm great. Because don't you? You think you're great. I meant, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like, duh. But no, is that really what I want? So I ask myself what it really is. And if what it really is isn't like, oh yeah, I absolutely want to have no one listen to me with any, benevolent care, but have everyone misconstrue my words so that they can stab me in the back and get me out of office in 4 years, for the next 4 years every single day. By the way, there's a guy who stands in the corner all the time so I don't get shot. Maybe he's the one that shoots me someday, though. I don't know. How would I know? I don't want to be president. Let me just say that. Like, what an insanity. So how do I decide what I want? I try to look at reality through the lens of the scripture and then realize if I'm not zealous for it so that it's happening, then I've lied to myself about wanting it. And I probably should figure that out because I can then stop worrying about it slowly over time. I don't really want that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to be world famous. Not really. Do I want to confess the gospel to world famous people so they convert? Yes, I do very much. But so like, but how's that going to happen? By becoming world famous? No, I don't think so. That would happen because God prepares the path, right? St. Paul confesses to Nero, not because he knocked on Nero's door.
Yeah.
He was as far away from Nero as he could get, really, when it was set in motion. So, yeah.
I suppose if I'm realistic about the question, I can see the pattern in my life of giving myself time. I'm not a fast decision maker.
No, you're not.
And then in my decision making process, I weigh who's going to benefit, How many people are going to benefit from this?
How do you deal with the fact that I think you take way too long to make decisions, but you make really good ones? Like, what do you do with that? Or like,
well, it hasn't changed me yet.
no, she's probably gonna keep taking too long. I just need like a book or something with me while we're shopping.
Well, that's good. We balance each other out well. I mean, you have more of a hasty decision.
Did I think of the answer already? Let's do it. Why don't you understand? Follow me.
And not hasty in a negative way. I think it's just more of like a charge. This is what we gotta do.
No,
Let's go.
Man.
And and I think that's good because I'm like, wait a minute, we haven't considered all the possible routes. I have to analyze this.
Why
and check
are you
the weather.
telling me I can't do it? Hey, everyone. Thank you for being with us this morning. We hope it has brought some hope, some light, some wisdom, and definitely Jesus and his word to your Saturday morning. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, we do love hearing from you, and we love receiving your questions for the show. Again, madpxm.com. Sign up for Mad Christian Mondays while you're there and send your theological or relationship, family, systems and whatnot questions to us, unless you'd rather send your questions about aliens, abominable snowmen, time warp, light speed, time lords, light speed, ludicrousness, and whatnot. A Brief History of Power is where that question should go.
Very good.
It's probably the place for that. That's most going to be taken care of. We do love it. Those of you who help us, thank you so much for supporting us at patreon.com/RevFisk or subscribestar.com/RevFisk. If you don't do that and you're able to put $5 a month toward helping this show and this stuff continue to go on here in Lakewood Hills, Illinois, that's awesome, because you're also supporting the Hebron Collegium when you do that. The Hebron Collegium is a gap year Bible school for men and spiritual retreat center here in Lakewood Hills, Illinois. We got 2 guests coming through just for the spiritual retreat this week.
Yes,
super excited about it.
So excited.
So you also are invited for $10 a day that basically covers your food as the kitchen co-op. You can come here and make use of the theological library, roll on the jiu-jitsu mats. It is kind of guys only. So there's that, but it's for you guys to come out here and pastors especially come spend some time with our guys. You'll be amazed what they'd love to learn from you, what you can teach them. Wood shop's in process, getting developed. Weight facility is there. It's done. Jiu-jitsu yesterday afternoon. I put a little tiny tweet of a little tiny video walking up to the threshing floor.
Okay.
And I'm walking across. It's 4:30 on Friday afternoon. The class is for St. Paul Lutheran Church kids. Mm-hmm. And we need to eventually open this to the rest of the, I don't think we'll see many, but one or two more might come over. St. Paul Lutheran Church kids, I teach free lessons at the mats at 4:30 on a Friday. And the kids are all over there kind of getting warmed up ahead of me, and they've got all 3 garage doors open because it's the first 70-plus day. And so you can see the mats in the shadows behind this garage. You get closer, it comes into view, and you can see them rolling right there on the mats. And I turn it off. And it's just so cool. And then we're sitting there, and class went on, and then I finally kind of got a little involved and began wrestling with Chloe, and I had a role with Logan as well. But the Wacholtz adults came in. My mom was sitting there, and they're on the couches. The outdoor furniture's been pulled over, and the doors are open, and we're just playing on. It was
beautiful.
I'm imagining next week, and then we go to the barbecue.
Yep.
And that's summers in Lakewood Hills, Illinois. I mean, come visit, join. Be a part of it. It's pretty cool stuff happening. And again, Gap Year Bible School for Men, 1 semester, 2 semester, a couple months. Are you a young man that's going to be finishing high school, don't know what you're going to do yet? Come read the Bible twice in this year. Get a little mentoring from myself and others who are here to help you set your feet on a trajectory for righteousness going forward. Wisdom and discipline together, but discerned our knowledge. So you can find out more at HebronCollegium.com.
And then tonight we have church tonight, but then we have our Sons of Solomon, Sons of St. Paul group. And so, if you can come on a Friday and a Saturday.
Yeah, you get the weekend, you get the whole
Sunday,
shebang.
I mean, wow, you will leave full.
Right. Right, but I love this. One of them is coming this week as a pastor. Mm-hmm. He just needs a place to go study for a week. Take some time, get a little retreat here.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely built for that purpose. And not to dig, you can go to a camp. Mm-hmm. You can go to a camp. There's a lot of Lutheran camps around, and stay in a cabin. That's fun. We're a little nicer than cabin. We're below like high-end quarters, but a little nicer than cabin. So, float your boat. You can fish if you want. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I got the kayaks clean.
We got to follow the rules about fishing. I learned, though, there's some rules about fishing.
Well, yeah.
Aaron went to the last homeowners association meeting, and he said there was about a 15 to 20 minute lesson on
How big?
spawning times. No, it was like all the different types, and then there's spawning times and seasons that impact when they're going to grow to a certain size, which is when you can put in the copper whatever, so you don't. And so it all is necessary information. My first question was did anyone write it down?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that was my biggest concern. We've been having, so we live on this Lake Mona, I think.
Has it got a name?
Yeah, it does.
Mona.
Lakewood Hills is the community around Lake Mona, I believe it is.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Anyway, yeah. Well, Lake Mona, or whatever it's called, has a little bit of trouble. She has an ecosystem problem.
Yeah.
And I was curious about because I see the fishermen just kind of all summer, and knowing what I do about habitat and ecosystems, so how does this impact?
There's certain sizes you're supposed to keep and not keep, and then the reason that the homeowners association considers it it's a private lake, but the reason that they really do care about not letting others fish here is because overfishing can destroy the population, right? And so the amount of people who fish here that are living here is not sufficient if they know the rules. Like if it's a certain size, so certain smallness, you got to throw it back. Certain bigness, you got to throw it back. There's a middle, and that's set by the state, which, not that you should always trust the state, but the idea is the small ones aren't big enough to eat yet anyway, and they need to grow. The big ones protect the nests. The big ones are like the defense for the whole community. And so you take out those big ones and you end up destroying them at the top of the food chain that they're supposed to be on. And then that impacts everything around them. So, yeah. And I mean, our ecosystem problem really has to do with the way the dam was built, which, God willing, that'll be resolved to some extent when they, to some extent, because we're not redoing the whole thing. But anyway, the world doesn't need to know all this. Are you independently wealthy and want to move to Lakewood Hills, Illinois, and be in the homeowners association, help us rebuild our lake to be glorious? Hey, I got a place where we can put gates to the city too, if you want. You just put your name on it if you like, or Jesus' name or something. But anyway, plenty of houses for sale. Or you could build your own down the street too. Were you in the car talking about those lots that are for sale on the other side of the? Right by Walmart. You know how this block
that's right.
ends at Walmart, miles that way.
Yeah.
And that whole side, they built the whole neighborhood, street, electrical, sidewalk, not a house.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
There's maybe one way back in the back.
Someone recently purchased
the whole thing, and they're for sale as lots. So if you want to buy a lot, an empty lot in a neighborhood, the only problem I learned, city gerrymandered, so it's city, which means Texas.
Oh,
I know.
weird.
Yeah, I know. Huh? But it's open lots. Hey, and guess what? If it's on wheels, if it's on wheels, you don't pay taxes on it as property tax the same way. So
We are right on the line.
What it's ready for is a whole bunch of motorhomes. You want to live in a motorhome for a while in a neighborhood with other people who want to be Lutherans?
I think they're called tiny homes.
There you go.
Let's call them tiny homes.
Yeah.
Oh, my stomach's getting hungry again.
Is that what that is?
No.
Meredith is made up of aluminum. Chinka, 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 chinka. All right. Hey, everyone, again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting us as you do. Find more as you can. Get to church this weekend. Hear the gospel preached where you are. Be in fellowship with those who are alive in Christ with you. Love your neighbor, because it's easy to hate them. And so let's work. Let's do it. See the Christian in the pew as the one you're here to care about as a subject. You must master them in love, right? And that sometimes means then learning to follow as well. Find your role, find your place, step into the order that is the Christianity of Jesus Christ, and don't wallow in the muck with those who have no hope, but lift up your head all the more as you see the day approaching. Because Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That makes you paid for it. That means you're immortal now. He's not going to be long anyway. You found Stop the White Nose with Jonathan and Meredith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meredith.
Don't wallow in the muck. I already said it. So rock on and hallelujah.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?